King of Gamers, or just KOG, is a super popular online game that was made by Jemuchian Corp. For a bunch of reasons, it kind of flipped the whole gaming world around, and it also made their creators crazy rich, bringing in like billions. But that wasn't all. The devs said that whoever wins the big game event would become the new head of the company and get all the money. Of course, it started a huge wave of all kinds of players who spent weeks and months in the game trying to get to the top spots. People hunted all sorts of monsters since each mob you killed gave you some kind of reward. A guy in this kind of futuristic armor smiled to himself, letting his blaster cool down because he had just taken out the last monster in the area. Plus, his team cleared the whole dungeon, which was the second to last step before the final fight for the champ title. The young player felt super pumped, because now when one of them wins the last raid, that lucky dude will be set with money for the rest of his life. His happy speech and yelling got cut off in the worst way possible, by a red rune blade that went right through his chest. The saddest part was that it wasn't some monster that survived. It was another player, one of the guys he came into the dungeon with. While his HP bar was fading and blood was coming out of his mouth, the brown-haired guy was trying so hard to ask his old teammate why he even did something like that. The answer was kind of obvious and simple. The last fight for crazy power and money was waiting, and no one wanted such a dangerous enemy like him around. The last thing he heard before his avatar hit the ground and started fading in the light of broken pixels was someone blaming him, saying it was his own fault for being too trusting. A cold system voice said that user Wan Jia left the game, and he still had time to think that he would never accept this and never just let it go. When the teen opened his eyes, he wasn't looking at the old gray ceiling in his apartment, but at another futuristic place with metal walls. He opened his red eyes wide and leaned forward like someone had poked him with a needle in his butt. That's how weird the whole thing looked. By every normal rule, he should have left the game and woke up in real world. But instead, he was standing in the starter area, inside a plane full of newbies. People around were just sitting there, but now they stared at him like he dropped on all fours and started barking. He honestly didn't care about those looks. He almost angrily asked the guy next to him what the date was today. The man looked at him like he was dumb, and said in this annoyed voice that it was July 1st, 2000s, the day when COG first started its famous event. It all sounded like some cheap sci-fi nonsense, but it was real. The main guy somehow went back in time. And the thing that kicked off this whole time loop wasn't even some truck hitting him on the street, but his own teammate betraying him and killing him. Thinking about that again almost made him explode. He clenched his fists, his teeth were grinding, and he swore he would never lose like that again. He could have stayed there doing some dramatic pose and giving himself some big dramatic promise about how he'd be the winner. But then a huge hand grabbed him. A massive muscle dude growled at him, spitting a bit, saying the kid better ask him first before opening his ugly mouth. You'd think it would start a fight right away. But nope. Instead, the teen just stared at the hot-headed guy like he came back from the dead. Even the big dude frowned, all confused, trying to figure out what the hell was going on and why this brat wasn't acting like a normal person. 1 second later, Wan Jiao was already hugging the giant and yelling that they first met on the first stage, and look, this guy is still alive. The man almost pushed him away in fear, telling him to stay back, and also who the hell was talking about some killings. Only then it hit the main guy that to everyone else he looked like some kind of lunatic, since no one here knew anything about time stuff. Oh, and the main guy also remembered that this same friend in the original timeline got torn into pieces by a whole pack of bloodthirsty zombies during that round. Of course, it wasn't some random accident. It was straight up a heroic sacrifice so his best friend and battle bro could get away. Kinda easy to guess this memory wasn't on Gia's fav list, and now he was dead set on doing whatever he could to stop that from happening again. The best thing he could think of on the spot was to offer Hu his hand and ask him to team up, since only like 10 users out of thousands would win this round. The big guy didn't answer for a while, and every second the silence felt heavier, like the air itself was filling with lead. And then it ended with the man pulling his arm back and just smacking Gia's hand away in the most rude and rough way. First off, Hu didn't need any partners or other walking trash. And second, why the hell should he trust some random kid he just met? That last point sounded kind of fair, but Wan Jia had just been forced to jump back in time, and he barely got what exactly he said wrong. But then the teen scratched his head with this honey-sweet smile and said that, yeah, it all went exactly how he expected. The big dude didn't change one bit. While the man was trying to understand what the hell just happened, and who this weird kid even was, the main guy walked out of the now empty plane. The cargo section was open because the players had to jump out into their zone, kinda like special forces, using parachutes to land. Turning back again and looking at Hu with an even wider sneaky grin. The main guy told the giant that he would definitely want to fight under his flag later. This time the bearded dude didn't even try to answer. He was seriously thinking what kind of weird algorithm this kid's brain was running on. Yelling that they would totally meet again later, Wan Jia pushed off hard with his legs and made this crazy jump down while holding his parachute. Only like 3 minutes passed since the first battle royale started, and the number of players already dropped. from 1,000 newbies to just 964. The prize was a fortune even old kings wouldn't dream of, and tons of people were ready to use the dirtiest tricks for it. One of them was watching his target through a sniper scope and whispered with a bloody grin that finally this idiot opened himself up for a shot. He saw a young guy in a military uniform with a pistol, but the kid didn't act like a real soldier, more like a lost child who had no clue what to do. It was such an easy kill that the sniper didn't even want to shoot right away, since there were no other pros around here anyway. After fully enjoying that feeling of power and importance, the killer aimed again and got ready to pull the trigger. But his little moment of pride got cut off in the most brutal way, by a bullet that went straight through his skull like it was nothing. In real life, a person would die right away from that. But this thug only took a huge crit hit in the virtual world and was still twitching. The guy who thought he was the smartest and slickest hunter around got caught himself, and by someone he even knew. Two killers were standing over him, and one of them asked with this nasty grin if the so-called bro really thought they'd be friends. He could have kept mocking him longer, but his partner told him to stop playing around and just finish the merc and grab his stuff. But they didn't even get the chance to take the sniper rifle when a super loud roar hit them, clearly coming from an engine. It was a military jeep, this huge heavy machine kinda like a rhino on wheels, and it was charging right at the two guys ready to crush them. The person driving it was pulling levers and slamming pedals, making the jeep rush so fast that dirt and grass pieces were flying everywhere. Smiling even more smug, the main guy joked that they shouldn't judge him too hard. He was still learning how to drive this thing. One merc didn't roll away in time and got hit at crazy speed, flying into the air like some broken doll. It wasn't real world, so the guy didn't actually die, but the wounds looked very real. Open bloody cuts and broken bones all over. The partner of the losing gamer first just stood there with his mouth open in shock, then snapped and started shooting like crazy, yelling for Wanjia to die. Of course, the main guy could not die in such a boring way. He easily jumped out of jeep and pulled out a crooked dagger with clear excitement. The merc kept firing non-stop and growled, asking when this little pup even managed to pull off such a weird move. And since the brown-haired guy was still a teen, he let himself show off a bit, slowly and carelessly dodging bullets in a very flashy way. But once he was done feeding his ego, the young Chinese guy jumped at the man chest in seconds and stabbed straight through his ribcage in one hit. Right at start of competition, he destroyed avatars of 2 users at once, and system gave him 200 points, a solid amount for beginning. Looking at virtual bodies almost with love, the main guy told himself that all the loot dropped by enemies was his now. It wasn't magic staffs or futuristic blasters or any laser sword, just guns that looked pretty close to real ones. After taking everything and putting a cooking pot on his head, Wanjia bragged to empty space that this was just kid stuff compared to raids he did before. A voice came from the sniper who got shot earlier, begging the main guy to share some meds and saying he would need allies anyway. The brown-haired guy slowly turned his head, then stared at that half-dead bastard for a long time in silence, like he was some talking insect. Pressing his palm to his chin like a thinker pose, Wanjia muttered with fake thought that yeah, that's actually true. He does need servants. The man was already celebrating in his head, since he still had a pistol hidden on him and planned to start shooting the second this brat came closer. What he really didn't expect was that the teen, without stepping any closer at all, pulled a knife out of his sleeve like some Altair. Cutting the throat of the third enemy player's avatar, the main guy added that even if he needs reliable friends, this guy won't be one of them. Then he pressed the hand with the blade to his face in an even more dramatic way, covering his mouth like he was posing for some invisible camera. Since COG wasn't just some random run in a cheap game but a world-level event, everything was being streamed all across China on huge screens. One fat and messy young dude, chewing on a bag of chips, muttered with envy that Wanjia was nothing special. He could easily do same thing too. Meanwhile, user Lin Xun was pressed to edge of the window, ready to open fire any second, while the intro voice explained more game rules. Now in this app, you couldn't make custom avatars anymore, but plenty of people still risked their identity for such a huge payout. Among them were even a lot of pro gamers who reached crazy skill levels in esports, like the brutal shooter Looter or the good-looking Alexis. There was also a Japanese esports player, Nohara Kenta, who showed up in this virtual world as a dark and deadly samurai. Rules were simple: kill other players and do extra tasks to earn points, then use those points to get gear and bonuses. The biggest starting capital was of course with the main guy, and random people now looked at the screen with doubt, wondering who this dark horse even was. Others openly mocked the idea that some random person could reach such heights, joking that it must be a pro using a second account. Lin Xun, who had been keeping watch from the window this whole time, got ready to finish off another target who was dumb enough to come to her on their own. But the main character knew exactly how things were supposed to go, saw other people's moves and traps hundreds of steps ahead, and was ready for any kind of trouble. The woman didn't know that yet, so she slowly and carefully aimed at her next victim, and quietly said that his days were over. A bullet flying faster than human eye could follow rushed past. not even touching edge of Wanjia's clothes, as he hid behind cover. The sniper was not impressed at all. Even worse, when she saw his head behind wall with that stupid bucket helmet, she straight up spat in disgust at such a noob. Pulling the trigger again, she started thanking her enemy with fake kindness, clearly for making his own killing so easy. And that was true. A moment later, the shot exploded in air like thunder turned up 10 times, with powder flashes everywhere. But when dust settled, the woman realized she did not hit Jia. She hit a regular bucket he left in his place. The blonde was so shocked by this turn that she blinked very slowly, asking herself what the hell just happened. When it fully hit her that it was a trick, she screamed in pure frustration across area, and the bent bucket fell off the stick. Grumbling and spitting curses through her teeth, Lin Xun admitted she got too careless, and now it was better to leave fast before something bad happened. But it was too late. The main guy already jumped over railing and rushed right up to the sniper, yelling surprise and mocking Wei. To be fair, the girl did not freeze up. She just grabbed her rifle tighter and started firing wild shots to put the bastard down. To show his edge and feed his ego a bit, Wanja let her fire a few times, just to dodge the bullets in casual way. By the time he stopped messing around, and Lin soon realized she was just a rabbit in hawk claws, it was already too late for her. One moment, one clean hit to the right spot on her neck, and that's it. The sniper drops down like she got smacked with a sack of sand. You might think Wanja would cut her throat after that and grab some extra points, but instead, he caught her in a surprisingly gentle way. Thing was, she wasn't some random girl from game, but another person he knew from his past life, and killing her was never in his plans. No need to say her waking up brought zero joy, mostly because the first thing she saw was his stupid face. The girl jerked forward, either trying to run or attack again, only to find herself rudely hanging from ceiling by her legs. To all her screaming, demands, and threats, the main guy just shrugged and reminded her that this wasn't real world, so brain damage wasn't really a thing to worry about. Grinding her teeth in rage, the blonde agreed that yeah, she lost. But then just kill her already. Enough of these shameful kid games. Wanja only grinned even wider and asked if it didn't sound dumb to her that she, the best fighter of her faction, would die here like this. Lin tried to shrug, and in a clearly bored voice said she left her old team long ago and had nothing to do with them anymore. The brown-haired guy pressed his hand to his chest and said that of course he knew that already. Since he wasn't some random nobody from street, he was her biggest fan ever. It was pretty rough and super basic flattery, but it somehow worked, because Zun instantly turned red and puffed up, trying real hard to hide how pleased she was. Lifting one finger like some teacher in class, the main guy said he wanted to make a small deal with the sniper, and only after that he'd let her go. She didn't really have any choice here anyway, so the girl asked what kind of offer he was even talking about. This time, the main guy didn't pause for drama. He went straight for it and offered the captive girl to join his newly made team. Lin Xun very slowly repeated his words, like he just said them in some weird language that sounded totally wrong. Then she looked away with even more disgust and coldly said she would never join any guilds again. Better to just die right there. In her old team, they treated her like trash. Girls were jealous of how she looked and kept messing with her, and guys either hit on her or spread nasty rumors. Of course, she wasn't going to tell any of that to some weird-looking kid. But he acted like he read her memories and said those people were idiots. And Wanja, no question about it, wasn't anything like them. He was a guy of a totally different kind. And to be more specific, he was really strong. And he said it with such a smug and over-the-top face, like he had just lifted the sky with his own hands. Getting her voice back, Lin asked him with even more disgust to stop talking nonsense, saying all men are the same by nature and want just one thing: to stare at weak women like her, especially keeping those greedy and nasty looks on certain places. Main guy instantly agreed with her, pulling the ugliest monkey face and breathing out in a dirty way, saying that from this angle, view looks pretty interesting. That would not help in any situation, and in this one, when Zun had opened up at least a bit, it felt like a bomb went off in her head. Fueled by adrenaline and rage, she swung so hard that she smashed her head into his chest, covered by steel plate, with such force that Jia almost threw up. Almost dropping to his knees from pain, the main guy forced out a tired smile and rasped that the shooter was just as cruel and aggressive as always. Turning away again with disgust, the blonde demanded they just kill her already and stop acting like they were some kind of friends. But main guy had very different plans, and poking knife tip into the former friend's throat, he promised he would recruit her no matter what. Oh no. He had no plan to kill her, that was never the point. Instead, the main guy was going to use a completely different approach. Very slowly, he cut her t-shirt to make something like a deep neckline, almost showing her chest. That move worked way better than threat of virtual death. The woman screamed from fear and anger, asking what the hell he was planning. The brown-haired guy with sweetest smile reminded her that millions of people were watching, since this was huge esports tournament going live. Even more slowly, the sniper asked what he even meant, though her face already showed she was starting to get this nightmare herself. The brown-haired guy happily admitted, yeah, this was blackmail. If Lin Soon didn't become his subordinate right now, he would just strip her and shame her in front of this whole crowd of viewers. He even started making stupid faces at some invisible camera, like he was selling some shady online site where you can watch dirty videos or something like that. And sadly, it worked perfectly. Tons of freaks literally squealed, yelling for the main guy to rip all her clothes off. Screens all over China were packed. Huge number of people glued to them, waiting for disgusting but free fun. The guy hooked tip of knife into her shirt again and started counting seconds out loud, super slowly, till damage couldn't be undone. Just like he expected, the girl broke. She couldn't live with that kind of shame, so she chose to swear a less humiliating oath. Hearing her desperate vow to serve him, Wanja smiled again. Then with one clean throw of his dagger, he cut the rope, freeing the unlucky girl. But she had been hanging upside down under the ceiling at about human height, and falling like that could easily snap your neck. The main guy caught her without any trouble, like she weighed nothing at all, and people in real world instantly flooded internet with comments about how cool and romantic it looked. Well then, he added, since they reached an agreement and understood each other now, Lin Zun should treat him nicer, not like she did 10 minutes ago. The blonde clearly blushed, looked away shyly, and in a rough whisper asked him to finally put her down already. She had enough of this. She really should have been more careful with her wishes, since Wanja did put her down, just by relaxing his arms and letting her hit floor with her whole body. Anyway, the sniper quickly got rid of the ropes and jumped a few steps away from him, staring sharp and from under her brows. While handing her the rifle, the main guy added with his usual grin that she was way too bad at close combat and really needed more training. The woman didn't answer that at all, but she gladly took her old loyal metal friend, the one that could crush a skull with a single shot. It was like there was never any shame with her clothes being cut. She looked so naturally confident and steady in that short moment. Back at entrance of the ruined building, the main guy told his new follower to hurry up and look for loot, so they could get out of here faster. But Lin Shun shouted for him to wait, and the brown-haired guy stopped right away, already feeling that what comes next he would not like at all. He was right, and it was stupid of him to think that woman he humiliated that hard would not try to kill him the moment she got chance. When he heard the loud click of weapon mechanism, the teen turned to his target very slowly, and there was not a single emotion on his face. Even the sniper herself, who was about to blow brains out of this bastard, got confused by such a calm reaction, even if this wasn't real world. Smiling like some old guru explaining weird lesson to clueless student, the brown-haired guy just said that Lin Jun would never break her word. He believed in her. Most people would laugh with hate and put a bullet into his neck, but the woman really froze, unable to look away with that awkward stare. In the old timeline, it turned out their roles were flipped. It was Wanjia crawling in dirt with bloody nose, while the shooter looked strong next to him, like a puppy beaten by its owner with stick. He tried hard to keep look of strength and rasped that if blonde girl wants it so much, then she should just kill him. But instead, Lin Shun only smiled bright like sun and held out her hand, asking if he maybe wants to join her, maybe as some kind of weapon carrier. The main guy was acting exactly like his friend was acting now, in this new timeline, showing with everything he had how much he hated it and how much he didn't agree. Back then, it felt like way worse punishment to him than any beating or avatar death. But the woman managed to calm this little beast down. All she had to do was give a warm, sunny smile and say, in a soft voice, that since she promised to take care of him and be part of his group, she would keep that promise. And this simple move was more than enough to fully fix his head and make him look at things in a different way. Now he got chance to pay his former teacher back with same coin, just putting her in role of stubborn student this time. This mental block about keeping promises made her lower her weapon, even though Lin still said that Jia's head must be total mess right now. Snorting a bit, the brown-haired guy said, "Yeah, sure, she doesn't get a lot about this world," and then clearly showed her his three-dimensional virtual map. It matched popular game PUBG almost perfectly, down to the look and design of the locations, but that wasn't the main thing. The real problem was that safe space was getting smaller. From everything, it looked like the closest safe zone was in a city near Big Strait, west from settlement Rozok. The way he said it almost made Lin Zun choke on air, because system makes locations like that in a totally random way. 3 seconds passed, and a cold system voice said that a new safe spot had just been created. And yeah, exactly where Wanjia was pointing. Saying the sniper was shocked would be mild. His eyes almost popped out like some frog that just got hit by very serious trouble with constipation. The answer was actually simple. The main guy had perfect memory, letting him remember every tiny detail, every rock on road and every leaf on tree. But the blonde girl just couldn't get how that was even possible. So she straight up asked her so-called friend if he was using any kind of cheats, showing another smug grin and tossing a knife into wall without even looking so it got stuck. Jia said he never used stuff like that, all because he himself was cheat, the biggest imba in world, absolute winner and lucky guy who would never have problems with anything. Lin reacted to this just like most grown people do to dumb teen bragging, with stone face and a strong feeling of cheap circus. She would have gladly explained how much nonsense this was and how serious his issues were. But right at that moment, he shut her mouth. When he moved his hand away, Zun was about to ask what the hell he was doing, but the unusually serious brown-haired guy pressed finger to his lips. While they were having decent time getting to know each other and trading info, their shelter had already been found by uninvited guests, and not nice ones. It would be stupid to expect these to be some peaceful travelers looking for a place to sleep or new friends. Nope. It was a crowd of top-tier thugs. Watching them from around the corner, the main guy suggested using these idiots as training dummies for their teamwork. Of course, Zun thought he was crazy for wanting to fight 2 against 5 ugly dudes with guns, but the teen casually said it would just be a warm-up. One of the big guys carefully reminded his captain, a pile of muscles with a square head like some young Schwarzenegger knockoff, that they should be careful. Maybe there's an ambush. The leader roughly told his lackey to shut up and ordered everyone to spread out and look for loot. There were 5 of them after all, so no point being scared. This tempting fate got shut down right away by a bullet that seemed to come out of nowhere, punching straight through the big guy's skull. While his virtual body was leaking pink blood, the other bandits started yelling at each other, trying to regroup. But for them, it was already too late. Everything felt like slow motion. Here, the main guy jumps out of the bushes, and here one enemy slowly turns around with huge scared eyes. Wanja killed that poor idiot with 1 hit, and the 3 guys left went into full panic, running around like rats in a barrel. The brown-haired kid could have killed the rest quietly, but since he was still just a teen first of all, even now he decided to show off, stepping out and growling in a scary way. The raiders, whose nerves were already stretched tighter than ropes, opened fire and started screaming that they needed to kill this creepy bastard as fast as possible. In less than half a minute, they fired hundreds of bullets, but not a single one even scratched the main guy. He was jumping around the ground like a young goat. Hiding behind a thick wall, he smiled, took a breath, and asked the empty air if those gentlemen maybe had a bit too slow reactions. A few seconds later, another bullet from Lin Xun went straight through someone's brain and painted nearby grass in a deep pink color, to the horror of the last raiders. Just like her new partner, the girl was smiling all chill, like it wasn't her who 10 minutes ago was saying this wasn't some kid's game, but real danger. The second-to-last raider ordered his buddy, who was shaking from fear, to hide somewhere in cover and wait for a right moment. He rushed to join him too, admitting the situation was total crap, and that running far away would honestly make perfect sense. The poor guy didn't even finish his sentence when his mouth got clamped shut hard, cutting off any chance to talk, and a blade touched his neck. Of course, the main guy wasn't planning to leave a single enemy alive, since every person was first of all just a walking pile of points. A few moments later, the unlucky bandit dropped onto grass as lifeless meat, eyes bulging so hard they almost popped out of his head. The last looter saw this and started screaming in pure panic, asking how this was even possible, since he didn't hear any gunshot at all. After that, he jumped up on shaking legs and ran off clumsily without any direction, while the main guy calmly asked Lin Xun if she wanted to chase the prey. Like a real pro sniper, she calmly raised rifle, took careful aim, and said that the enemy wasn't meant to leave alive. A few seconds later, a bullet went straight through the poor looter's chest, wiping out his virtual avatar and sending him back to real world. After that, the main characters started throwing compliments at each other, talking about how good each of them was. Real pros at what they do. But Lin Xun quickly tried to stop this, pointing out that it all worked so easily mainly because the enemies were pretty weak. So Wanja and his partner finished off a group of 5 people, and 2 of them were supposed to be enough for the main guy to get the points he needed. His thoughts got cut off by the blonde girl's question. She couldn't get why the brown-haired guy used knife kills if he could have gotten a gun a long time ago. Well, the main guy had 2 reasons ready for that, and the first one was that this way gave twice as many points as using firearms. As for the second reason, he didn't get to say anything, since System Voice announced that the young guy received a unique status and a priceless reward. Lin Xun was looking at the notification window with clear surprise, and the guy got so into talking that he didn't even notice she stopped listening. Then he decided to act like a gentleman and made a very dramatic bow to the girl, pressing hand to his chest and saying his name in serious voice. After that, he straightened up and explained that in King of Gamers, there are tons of hidden achievements, and game gives big rewards for them, just like now. The pillar of blue light vanished as fast as it showed up, leaving behind a metal square box, and Zun started thinking who Jia really was if he knew so much. Of course, the main guy was not about to talk right now about time travel, so he said they can talk later. And for now, he was going to open the chest. Its lid moved apart really slow, almost in some serious way, and the brown-haired guy couldn't hide his awe when he saw what was inside. Lin, who was usually all serious and grown up, for a moment turned into curious little girl, demanding that he show her everything right now, biting her lip from excitement and trying not to even blink so the nice vision would not vanish. Wanja finally whispered that inside was a spear, In Chinese, the words for spears and guns sound same. So the sniper thought the system gifted the guy some kind of cool weapon. The mix-up cleared fast when the guy smiled and pulled out of the container a metal staff, looking like thick black bar from gym barbell. When she saw this, she snorted in disgust right away and asked if he thought she was some kind of blind person. But that only pushed the guy to show off even more. Very slowly, he lifted his new toy over his head, holding it high with stretched arm, and then its separate parts started sliding out. When the spear fully straightened, he froze with his back as straight as possible, waved the weapon using just his fingers, and threw a sharp look at the woman over his shoulder. That finally broke Lin Xun's doubt. Mostly because till the very end, she expected to see some stupid mix of stick and rifle. Nope, this thing was way better than that junk. First of all, because it was locked to owner account forever and could be used pretty much anywhere. Well then, the sniper admitted with arms crossed, this might be useful, but only if Jia manages to stay alive till the end of this event. The brown-haired guy who spent so much time flexing, doing dramatic poses and talking big, made a stupid face when he realized they were still taking him as a joke. No, the girl was being serious. Using some ancient basic weapon on level where everyone has rifles, automatics, and pistols is straight suicide. But the main guy pushed back, saying this wasn't real life, it was a game. And when system gives such a rare and valuable gift, it can't just be useless trash. His weapon was called Nine-Tailed, named after Kitsune, and that meant it could have 9 different forms. The golden spear emblem shaped like fox head lit up bright, showing its new user a wheel with 9 symbols. Main guy didn't think for long, and after spending 500 points on upgrades, he decided to give the weapon an extra bow form. In less than a second, it transformed into a sleek, modern combat bow, able to hit thick-skinned targets from huge distances. It didn't come with arrows, but that wasn't a problem at all, since the special skill of this weapon was creating ammo out of nothing. The main guy casually pulled the string back, and for a moment it almost looked like he was about to shoot rays of the sun itself. With one shot, he shattered a massive rock into tiny pieces, and calmly explained to Lin that a bow was way more useful in this round because of stealth. Even someone as obsessed with guns as her couldn't deny that the nine-tailed bow was just amazing. But it wasn't only about smart thinking. Plain luck played part too, since the first winner of this event in past timeline never got this toy. Still, he didn't have time to enjoy it because Xun, usually calm, focused, and grown up, suddenly started screaming like a little girl, demanding something just as cool. Sadly for her, Wanji brought her back down real fast, saying that if these achievements were easy to get, everyone would be walking around with broken gear. To avoid this, the devs came up with a creative but harsh fix. They simply turned the owner of such rare loot into a target for everyone on map. When Wan saw that 1,000 points were now promised for his head until day ends, he slowly muttered that yeah, now he gets the saying about nail that sticks out getting hit. The woman on the other hand still looked kinda hopeful, but with every second the meaning of what was about to happen was slowly sinking in. They didn't even finish talking when somewhere out there, staring at virtual map, someone already swore to take the main guy down. Tiger Hu also didn't waste this time. He gathered a whole pack of followers who now welcomed his plan with loud happy shouts. The handsome blonde cowboy Alexis and his crew also decided to join this race. But for him it was mostly about taking all the glory. No matter how confident the main guy was, he wasn't an idiot either. So his jeep was now rushing through fields and forests, throwing up clouds of dust. In a clearly calm and uncaring voice, he warned Lin Xun that if she keeps following him, she might end up on a pretty shameful respawn. Letting the soft streams of wind hit her face, neck, and chest, she quietly said how could she even live with herself if she cowardly left a teammate behind. And she also planned to shoot him in head and take the wanted points for herself. If it became clear they had no real chance to win this event, someone else might have gotten offended. But the main guy just smiled and asked what goals and wishes were really driving the sniper girl. Pulling her legs up and hugging them to her chest, the blonde laughed and told him it was all just a joke. After that, they kept moving for a bit longer, until the main guy finally hit the brake, since they had arrived. In front of them stood a classic Chinese bunker, a huge building that looked like some old fortress with thick walls and a round opening hiding the doors. Getting out of the car, Wang Jie calmly said this was their shelter, and also the jar he had prepared in advance. The shooter girl frowned in confusion and asked if he meant that old Chinese saying about turtle in a jar, meaning a no-way-out trap. Smiling in a blood-hungry way and flashing his eyes, the main guy said this would be a jar that almost lures victims inside on its own. Wei's punk crew had been following Jia's moves this whole time, chasing him like a pack of wolves on a boar's trail. Tiger was kinda confused though, since 2 whole hours had passed and the target stayed inside the bunker the whole time, like that same turtle from the saying. One of his helpers even pointed at the jeep left behind by the main guys and said it was parked in the most open and obvious spot possible. For now though, none of them dared to step inside, figuring that the prey had most likely protected itself with a whole chain of deadly traps, On top of that, some people almost started pushing back against this mission, saying straight up that they personally gain nothing here, since prize goes only to the killer. But Hu just shouted back that they are all brothers here, and it doesn't matter who gets the reward, he will still walk in front and deal with the traps. Sure, there were still tons of risks, but in the end, if you don't take risks, you get nothing, and the others could at least watch Wei's back. After that, no one really wanted to argue about the plan out loud, and the raiders carefully moved into the tunnel, not knowing they were being watched. Meanwhile, the main guy was happily slurping cheap noodles with loud sounds, enjoying the fact that another comrade came here on his own, saving him trouble of looking. He didn't bother explaining who he was to the sniper, instead telling her to just relax and enjoy the show that's about to start. After a short pause, Lin Xun added with some weird feeling in her voice that only her new teammate could be this careless when thousands of people want him dead. The longer she talked, the more the main guy swelled with pride, taking extra flashy poses on purpose just to feed his ego. Oh, he was a top-tier cheater. And the dozens of virtual player corpses that came here before Tiger's group were best proof of that. There were tons of dead bodies. They were laying in long rows, almost like some twisted signs pointing deeper into heart of the bunker. Raiders looked at it with disgust, like those were real corpses. And with fear, they realized traps were still active, and it was time to get out. But right at that moment, when some were ready to run away and forget about progress and virtual money, the passage partly went down. A huge hidden stone plate dropped with crazy speed for its weight, locking everyone inside, like rats in a box. It didn't take much for people to panic and start yelling that they were done for, and only Hu himself stayed calm and steady. After calming his men down, he started wondering how Wang Jia, a normal player just like them, could use all those traps and systems. He couldn't find answer, because one of his guys suddenly turned around and asked Tiger to look that way. A massive TV screen came out of wall, and it started to wake up, at first showing nothing but pure static. When it fully turned on, the main guy showed up wearing some mask that looked like that old Saw doll, clearly thinking it was real funny. Hu didn't care about tricks like that at all. He just pointed his double-barrel shotgun at the screen and demanded the enemy show himself. Of course, the main guy refused, and instead he dropped that famous cheesy John Kramer line about wanting to play games. Hatches opened up, letting in toxic green gas that slowly drained people's health. And the only way for them to stay alive was using medkits. Folding his fingers together, Wanja almost sweetly whispered that now the game would begin. But he didn't get to finish the line. Someone shot the screen and called the main guy a fan of cheap show-off crap, saying he wasn't going to doubt his team anyway. Pulling a pack of healing stuff from inventory, he said they would split into two groups. One looks for exits, the other heals up. And then they swap turns. But the people who just recently worshipped Brother Tiger and said they would follow him even to hell were now staring at him in silence with weird looks. The man asked in a sharp tone why they were still standing there and not healing. Did they really not believe their leader could get them out of this mess? Finally, one guy spoke up and asked what's in it for him, since he had enough meds and kits to save his own skin. That unlucky idiot didn't even finish talking when a bullet went through his body. Pink blood sprayed from everywhere, and his soul went straight to respawn. With his last bit of strength, he still tried to beg for his life, but nope. His former battle bro needed him dead, so he couldn't fight back for his meds. Even Lin Xun, watching the growing meat grinder from a safe control room, was surprised at how fast everything turned violent. As for main guy, yeah, he could honestly admit that his past and future friend Hu was a great tactical leader and a strong fighter and player. But at the same time, he was stupid in almost criminal way for letting himself underestimate human nature, which has tons of rude sayings and songs about it. Meanwhile, the shot guy was getting weaker and weaker, but he was still desperately holding on to his virtual life and calling for his leader, his brother Tiger. It did not help, and by the time Hu snapped out of shock and made even one step forward, the virtual body of that player was already covered in blue pixels. One more moment and he fully faded into air, leaving nothing behind, and Hu screamed in rage and grief like it was real death. Burning with anger, the big guy grabbed the punk with the gun by chest and growled that he was a damn piece of shit who raised hand on their teammate and brother-in-arms. Saying that the killer was not impressed at all by this fiery speech would be like saying, mountains are kinda tall. He honestly saw no tragedy here, only logic. There were not enough meds for everyone, so it made sense to cut off the strongest ones who could storm bunker. But the more this guy kept talking, the louder and angrier Tiger teeth were grinding as he fought urge to smash his skull. The guy just spread his hands and repeated that if they sacrifice half of their so-called teammates, then they themselves would stay alive and still have a chance to win. And really, what brothers or partners are we even talking about? This is a game tournament, and only one thing truly matters here: winning. That was the last straw, and the big guy with huge pleasure smashed his hammer like fist straight into that ugly smirking face. Even in real life, a hook from a giant like that would wreck anyone. And in-game, Hu had straight-up superhuman strength and sent the target flying many meters away. Sure, they were just situational allies and not some kind of brotherhood, But that didn't change the fact that such selfish thinking went against his principles. Rubbing the scrapes on his face, the punk mocked how naive Wen really was, then suddenly yelled to someone to get started. Bullets cut through the air and hit right on target, straight into Tiger's wide back, protected by a solid metal chest plate. The shooters holding a pistol and a rifle smiled with pride, knowing that no matter how strong the armor was, it couldn't take all the damage. Yu really lost almost all of his health bar and started bleeding out. But with even more force, he showed his anger and pure disgust. The rebel leader, already standing firm on his feet, calmly said this wasn't betrayal at all, since they were never loyal to Wen and only followed his strength. Sadly, he was just too dumb for his own good, treating people like blood brothers when they only ever saw him as a pawn from start. It turned out there was more than one screen in room, and one of them lit up again, showing a very pleased main guy. The surviving bandits stared at him in silence, waiting, hoping he would let them go, or at least say something else. Even under mask, you could feel that snake-like grin when he said the captives did exactly what he wanted, and that really impressed him. Because of that, the main guy was ready to keep his deal, and the once locked doors in hall opened with a heavy roar, letting air rush in. That also made the criminals decide not to finish off their old leader, just leave him there to die from poison, knowing how badly he got humiliated. Now a totally different goal stood in front of the plotters, a walking storage of 1,000 points, just waiting for new owner. But the pink-haired punk hated Wei and his kind ideas so much that he didn't forget to warn he would kill anyone who helped Hu. Of course, no one wanted to risk their progress for a guy they knew for, at most, a few days, and everyone ignored Hu. Even Lin Xun, who got used to idea that people are trash, especially men, felt pretty bad seeing things go this way. She might have even asked the main guy if he didn't go too far playing some genius manipulator game, but he was already gone from the spot. Spotting him with her eyes, the girl right away asked where he decided to head off to this time. Lifting his hand with pride, the main character calmly announced that he was going to collect rewards of his hard work. The thugs meanwhile tried to walk real careful, since under every corner another nasty trap could be hiding. But things were actually way worse. Wanja openly walked out to meet them without mask, greeting them with the most sugar-sweet grin possible. The men pulled out their guns right away, and how else could it be, when such an annoying and troublesome prey finally came out on its own just to die faster, making his smile so sweet it could almost give you diabetes. The brown-haired guy warned them that shooting right now wasn't the smartest idea. The weird and stinky yellow liquid they were stepping in inside this room was not someone's toilet mess. It was gasoline. One spark was enough to turn everything here into hell. The gang leader realized it and got so scared that he instantly started blaming Jia for breaking his word about letting the hunters leave alive. The teen slowly raised his hand in reply, showing everyone what he was holding, a hot bottle with Molotov cocktail written on it. Juan threw it down, shouting with this cruel joy that he never actually promised to let unlucky hunters walk away alive. They were so scared and shocked that they didn't even try to run back into Big Gas Hall. Only one idiot yelled that something was being thrown at them. Even if it was just a game and none of the victims really died or got hurt, they felt it way too real, like they were slowly burning alive. While they twisted, screamed, and died, the cold system kept counting which player was being sent to respawn zone again. Then it announced that for killing 10 people with a Molotov, the main guy got another secret weapon and a nasty title called Barbecue Master. As soon as the blue pillar of light faded again, leaving a cube chest behind, Wang Jie climbed on it with so much hype and joy that he looked like a monkey again. That exact face of his was happily shown on streams all over China, and people just couldn't believe someone could pull off a record like this. No matter how you look at it, 2 unique achievements in such short time looked super suspicious. It straight up smelled like cheating. Even news shows talked about it, when a host asked one of the devs if it seemed to him that the main guy was really a fraud. Chung Yi-jin calmly said that King of Gamers was built in a way where any cheat codes were impossible, so people should look at situation more reasonably. Almost no one noticed or cared that the burned-up, twisted virtual bodies were still moving, not until a hand suddenly pushed out from under them. The bandit leader was still alive, messed up bad, and he was snarling like crazy, saying he'd do anything to win, sell out anyone if needed. He crawled forward, dragging himself with the only arm that still worked, until his eyes finally stopped on someone's legs. It was Wei Hu, the good old tiger, still alive, looking calm on purpose, but so angry he barely looked human anymore. The traitor never had much pride to begin with, so he instantly started begging for his life, even saying they were brothers and all that. The big guy just grabbed his arm, twisted it hard till the bone snapped with a nasty crack, and said the game was over now. Then, he pulled out a long hunting knife and without any rush cut the bastard's throat, calling him brother one last time, full of pure spite. The only thing left of that unlucky killer and plotter was a torn red armband, soaked in pinkish blood that looked like paint. Wanja waved at Wei in a friendly way, like he wasn't the same guy who tried to choke him with poison gas 20 minutes ago and turned his own people against him. Even the tiger himself didn't look mad at all, more like just surprised that their target was still that crazy teen from the plane. Jumping over the rail for the dropdown, the brown-haired guy loudly said that, yeah, it was him. The same person with a reward of 1,000 points on his head. Sadly, the cool landing did not work out, and the kid just slammed into the hard stone floor face first, arms stretched out in a really stupid pose. System even took away a quarter of his health bar for that. And Juan shyly admitted he totally forgot about such small thing as fall damage. He did not get to say anything else for a very good reason. Lin Jun came down from above like an angry fury and kicked him in the face with full force. She beat him for a long time and pretty brutal, punishing him for taking all the loot, including the rare weapon, for himself, while Hu stood there wondering how he lost to such clowns. But even while getting beaten like hell, the brown-haired guy found a moment to grab and hold his teammate foot, then told Wei that he was his own worst enemy. The man was so shocked that even if a real lightning bolt hit him right now from a clear sky, he still would not be this surprised. Fixing his hair in the most show-off way, the teen explained that the gas was too weak, and people killed their own selves by thinking that man is a wolf to man. If all those idiots followed the plans of their so-called beloved leader from the start, they would be alive right now and keep their game progress. Hu just laughed in response, admitting that he really was a rare kind of idiot for not getting that everything around them was nothing more than a game, and everyone only wants to win it. Then he admitted without any regret that main guy really outplayed him, and that meant he had full right to finish off his failed killer. The young guy crossed his arms and asked if Wei was trying to mock him, because the tiger he knew before would never let himself get killed like this. The smile slid off the man's face and he tiredly repeated that he already said it before. There was no need to act like Jia knew him for years or anything like that. But the main guy said that 10 years ago the whole esports world got shaken by a mysterious user in a tiger mask who later vanished, and Hu definitely should know about him. Obviously, that strange fighter who crushed top virtual warriors was closely tied to this man. Looking at his huge muscular hand, the man quietly said he never thought someone still remembered the raging tiger ghost. Hearing what they were talking about, the sniper girl got all excited and asked if they really meant the ghost, and Jia shot her an annoyed look. Anyway, he pulled out his spear and repeated that it was kinda stupid and silly for someone of that level to die here and like this. Instead, the main guy offered Wei a classic duel, and if he managed to win, the big guy would have to join his team just like Zun did. The man only warned him not to even think about begging when his HP starts dropping fast, which pretty much meant yes. The brown-haired guy smiled just with his lips, and Lin turned red and covered her mouth, reminding him that if Hu was really the ghost, then main guy had basically no chance to win. The young guy did not even turn around to look at her, and his whole pose showed he was as relaxed as possible. And then he rushed forward, lifting his spear and yelling that he still could not be sure of anything until he checked his skills in a real fight. After that, a flashback started, telling about stuff from 10 years ago, back when virtual reality was just starting to be used on big scale in the Empire. Back then, it was time for another fighting tournament, and on one side, there was a veteran of the scene, a player known as Holy Fire Sword Quan Xiao. His opponent was a weird and at that time barely known new player, who took a tiger nickname after Mask of that animal. The opponent felt super confident, and why not? Since he was facing some pathetic newbie, someone like that could be crushed with one spit and forgotten. Judges did not drag it out, and just a few seconds later, huge red letters saying battle showed up on the big screen. Wei Hu was much smaller back then than he is now, without all those giant metal muscles, but the dyed white hair and serious blue eyes were already there. Unlike his enemy, he did not waste time bragging and did not panic either. He just calmly and with full focus moved his hands over keyboard, pressing what he needed. Quan Xiao pulled a massive blade from behind his back with bloodthirsty hype and rushed in. But fight still ended after just 19 seconds. The guy jumped up from his chair so hard he almost knocked it over along with table and computer, because it was really hard to even believe what just happened. And of course it was him, famous esports star, Real Goliath, who got beaten by David and a dark horse named Wei Hu. Commentator didn't waste time, grabbed mic, and with a clear, strong voice said that they finally had a new champion. When nickname Ghost of Raging Tiger echoed in air and finger pointed right at him, the still young gamer couldn't stop smiling. Flowers, confetti, scarves, and all kinds of random junk flew up into virtual stadium sky as crowd went wild repeating those words. All of that older tiger remembered in just few seconds, wondering if he still had enough fire left now after so many years. But Wanja wasn't about to give him more time to think, and finally moved in to attack, even yelling to warn his enemy. Most gamers would be taken down by a single strike of nine-tailed spear, but Hu blocked it easy using just sword. Protagonist shouted with real joy that Wei was just as strong as he was 10 years ago, and Big Guy laughed and said Hero wasn't made of clay either, unlike all the fights before, where Jia beat his enemies with almost no effort. This time he had to go all in, and the bunker drowned in pure chaos. Pulling back with trouble after a few failed tries to hurt Tiger, The teen admitted for first time with real fear that without his training, he'd already be lying there without a head. Suddenly, a scared female scream rang out. It was Lin Soon calling her partner to look at what Wei was planning this time. In just seconds, the man rolled and flipped closer to his enemy, then suddenly froze with arms spread wide, and glowing hair like light started pouring out of his body. The teen's red eyes went wide in horror, and inside his head, huge dirty swear words were flashing nonstop. The fight was taking a really bad turn. A moment later, those ghost-like hairs shaped into a massive sword, and Hu got ready to use one of his strongest moves, Tiger Strike. That hit was so strong half the room got destroyed, rocks crashed out of the walls, and Jia got thrown back many meters. The sniper watched the fight with growing terror, and now could only beg in a dead voice to who knows who, hoping the hero wouldn't die. There wasn't much hope for that, since the main guy could only bounce around like a rubber ball tossed inside a tiny room. Wei Hu, letting the blade fade away and slowly lowering his arms, growled with satisfaction that this was it. Their duel had quickly reached its end. But what was kind of funny, the stubborn kid was still alive and even standing, so the raider leader decided to go with a good old knife. The teen got a really deep blade wound in his shoulder, and if this was real life, he would have already bled out on the floor. But Jia didn't look scared at all and even grinned again, because his spear, in case someone forgot, could also turn into a pretty damn good bow. Tiger stared at that change like main guy suddenly grew a second head. Aiming right at him, the teen shouted that from this close range his enemy had zero chance to even try dodging. One moment later, a golden arrow, like a sun ray or lightning, shot forward and pierced Wei Hu avatar head, blood splashing everywhere. No, the man didn't die like you might think, since the main guy chose to spare him and only scratched his cheek a bit. Grinning all casual, the main character said it was kinda dirty of him to use such a weird weapon, but he was fine calling it even now. Hearing the offer to form brother bonds anyway, Ghost Tiger just stood there for a bit, staring at the hand held out to him. In the end, he made his choice and shook it without fuss, saying the main guy won't have to bug him with that kind of request anymore. All the hostility, the urge to fight for points, and any hard feelings just vanished. Those two were already acting like best friends for life. It looked so dumb and sweet that even Lin Zun, who had been watching whole fight this whole time, awkwardly asked the guys to stop it. Only then the big guy noticed her, and he leaned in with a sneaky whisper, asking his new little brother who that pretty girl was. The girl straightened up and pulled her shoulders back, ready to say she was that Lin, famous sniper player, but sadly she didn't get past a couple words. And that's because Wei Hu, kinda by accident and without even meaning to, was choking the main guy in his hug and asked with real hype if she was his girlfriend. Angry and embarrassed, Zun yelled that it wasn't like that at all, and main guy, with hoarse voice from those bear hugs, introduced her as their team sniper. The tiger rubbed his chin in thought, because a female player was clearly not some normal thing in his view. The blonde took that reaction her own way, and very calmly asked if he had some problem with that, while kinda lifting her gun by accident. Wei Hu and Wan Jia both waved their hands and heads at same time, chirping that no, everything's fine. Girls are best at clearing games, and she should just put the gun down. A shot still went off, almost hitting one of the main guys in the heel, but it came from somewhere behind, and everyone turned around right away. The hunt for main guy was still going on, and a new group already reached the bunker. Their fighters were moving down into the lower halls. Each of them had that same gold scarf on their face, covering mouth and nose. But even then you could still recognize Saitama among the gamers. Zun, pretty much losing it from anger, shouted that all of this was Protagoist's fault, doing dumb duels instead of hiding like normal people. The kid just smiled calmly and said there was no reason to panic, because he had plan made exactly for moments like this, and Hu asked right away what kind of plan. Turned out the plan was just to run as fast as possible to save your life, which the main guy did with stone-cold face. His teammates once again felt like they were part of some stupid circus show, but they were smart enough to join the escape from bullets anyway. Meanwhile outside, Alexis, the leader of the Golden Masks, was watching it all with interest through binoculars, one foot resting on one of his servants. One of the raiders came closer and carefully reminded him that if they wait too long to attack, someone else might kill the fox first. But the blonde guy, like he didn't even hear that, said that if main hero got so many points in such short time, then he was clearly more than some average player. Plus a lot of bounty hunter groups were breaking into the bunker, and none of them came back out. So it was obvious you couldn't take single step inside without hitting traps. That was why Alexis planned to just wait until Fox sticks nose out of the hole, especially since System kept moving safe zone to random places. The young guy honestly admitted with respect that his leader was a real pro esports player, and the blonde added that they were meant to meet Jia on the hunt anyway. Scouts meanwhile kept searching for prey in corridors and halls of the bunker, checking every corner slow and careful, fingers resting on triggers. For some time nothing happened, like there were no living souls left here at all. But then a light bulb burned out way too fast. Raiders jumped from fear all at once. but one of them stopped Rest from panicking, reminding that this place had traps everywhere. At same time, main guy finished cutting power across whole bunker and calmly noted that now it was time for counter-move. His teammates treated this idea with clear doubt, cause yeah, enemy could not see them anymore. But small detail was that they also saw nothing at all. Putting on night vision goggles, Juan decided to take a real good look at Lin's chest. For that, she punched him in face so hard she almost knocked out half his teeth. But this pervert not only did not get upset or scared, instead he wheezed in pure joy saying that hit from woman was real good. Putting on same device, Zun proudly reminded that no one had right to stare at her like that, no matter if he could see in dark or not. Wei, on the other hand, was way more interested in the practical side of things, like where the main guy even got a triple set of those devices from. The teen said kinda weakly that maybe it was all about his insane luck, and in his head added that he would stay here a bit longer. Lin just shrugged with no care and said she wouldn't be surprised if one day the main guy pulled out Italian artillery straight from his pants. The brown-haired guy took that jab very seriously and rushed to add that even for him that kind of thing was way too much. Hu, being the oldest in this small group, showed again that he was voice of reason, asking what they were gonna do now and how to attack. Turning the spear into a bow, the main guy whispered with blood-hungry excitement that, yeah, the long-awaited time for killing had finally come. At the same time, two gamers were sneaking through the corridors, a blonde guy in business suit and a Japanese schoolgirl, and they were arguing with each other about their task. Making a dirty monkey-like face, the guy rasped that they could just forget this quest, trade numbers, and then in real life make a big bang. The hunter didn't get any answer, and pretty fast he started worrying about why his partner wasn't reacting to any of his words. As it turned out pretty fast, she had a solid reason to drop to the floor and stop showing any signs of life. An energy arrow was stuck right in her skull. What really pissed the blonde guy off was not that his partner got sent to respawn so fast, but that she didn't even manage to give him the number he wanted so bad. He didn't get to think about it for long though, because Wanja slipped up behind the unlucky killer, and without extra words stabbed a spear right through his chest. Getting 100 points as reward, the main guy calmly said that even in game you can't win if you act careless. He was also honestly shocked by how awful the weapons of this pair were, even taking into account that they were top-level noobs. He didn't have time to think more about it because their teammates noticed him right away and opened fire with everything they had. At same time, they tried to report to their bosses that they finally found the target, but that also failed, thanks to bullets straight into brain. Like a real pro sniper, Lin Shun stayed behind cover and didn't stick out, but she was still happy she got a chance to show herself. Realizing they had no number advantage and that the enemy moved way too well in Darkroom, the unlucky killers ran off to hide in fear. Jumping after them, the brown-haired guy muttered in an annoyed voice that he told the blonde girl to be careful, cause you never know what can happen in dark halls. The attackers kept hiding behind a big container for some time, until one of them thought that right now, the best move was to get out. No way anyone was gonna let that unlucky idiot run off, and the main guy was already standing in front of him on top of container. Looking at him with fear and pure disgust, the men made one last desperate move to get their asses out of this trap. But instead, both of them got grabbed by the throats like some skinny chickens, then pulled back in, with all their struggling fully ignored, holding them real tight with his elbows against his armored chest, gun barrels pressed to their temples. Wanja said this was just divine justice. After those kills, he checked the stats, and with a satisfied smile noted he was right from start, killing with cold weapons paid off better. Then another thug popped up behind him, lifting a crowbar over his head and yelling that the reward would be his. The main guy turned around, and another unlucky criminal froze right in mid-swing, never managing to land the deadly hit. Old Tiger Wei Hu was always on guard, not letting anyone sneak up from behind and stab his new friends, so only the enemy got sent to respawn. Still, the man didn't like how the main guy acted in those last fights, and told him he better get his head straight soon. The protagonist just shrugged and smiled, asking how you are even supposed to not be savage in a game like this, fully ignoring that he himself talked about fighting serious not long ago. Deep dungeon darkness got cut by a strong blue light, like someone suddenly pulled out a Jedi light blade. Main characters felt zero respect or hype about it though, since all they saw was a dumb glowing stick that looked like kid's toy. But another squad of thugs was cheering hard, cause their leader brought the blessing with him, and now they were gonna kick asses of these idiots. Not even few seconds passed before that poor little bulb blew up with nasty crack, like someone shot it with rifle. The dumb killers started screaming in panic that their tiny light was broken, making faces so stupid it looked like they were farming likes. Even Lin Shun, who actually made the shot, could not believe someone can be that much of an idiot. Then it got even funnier, since the thugs began yelling at each other, arguing who was to blame for ruining their precious lamp. After that, they had no better idea than shooting blindly, and it clearly showed why no one ever does that in real life. Jia and Hu didn't even need to do anything. They just hid behind containers and listened in bored way as bullets were roaring many meters above them. They could have stayed there till those morons killed each other, but it was hell boring. So the main guy suggested a little game to his sworn bro. He wanted to see which one of them was better, and for that they needed to kill as many enemy players as possible, something the older guy happily agreed to. By the time they were done and lights started blinking with electric glow again, all the invaders were lying around as lifeless bodies. While wiping his trusted blade clean from pink digital blood, Wei asked who got the win and who managed to take down more of those noobs. Taking off the night vision goggles, Juan casually said he had no idea at all. He honestly didn't even try to count during all that fun. Around them were dozens of virtual corpses. And System kindly reported that only 675 users were still alive on the server. Striking a smug and kinda dramatic pose, the main guy was about to say that he clearly won for sure, but then an empty can smashed right into his head. Taking a sip from still almost full can, Lin Jun lazily said that if the protagonist didn't act like a rat during the fight, he would have finished last. Not getting offended at all, the main guy raised a finger in teaching Wei and explained that what he was doing was called tactics. Tiger wasn't impressed either, since if all their enemies were going to be this pathetic, then winning like that wasn't even worth being proud of. In a more serious voice, Jia reminded them that they were just standing in safe zone for now, but it was going to move to a totally different place very soon. The sniper didn't really get what the problem even was, because hey, they already killed tons of idiots, and they could keep doing that in any situation. Turned out, not really. And the first reason was that in KOG, you couldn't just wipe crowds for free since there was very little stuff to restore HP. The second reason was that outside those rare safe zones, other dangers were waiting for users, way worse than just poison gas. The blonde even blinked in surprise, cause, hey, if the worst thing here wasn't gas that eats your hit points, then what was it? Wanja answered slowly that it was radiation. And when he said it, there was no usual showing off or drama in his pose or face at all. Wei Hu blinked in confusion and asked what the difference even was between getting slowly killed by radiation and choking on sour air. As it turned out, radiation drains HP way faster, and you can heal it only with rare special meds. And also, Lin Kun didn't let the main guy finish, since she said they should just run from here instead of standing around and talking like idiots. That's exactly what she was about to do. But at the last moment, the guy grabbed her hand and told her to stop. And this time his voice was serious too. Maybe despite that, or maybe because this move had zero dirty meaning, the blonde blushed like she had just been kissed on the lips. The brown-haired guy was so focused that he didn't even notice that, and instead pointed out that other users could easily set traps outside the bunker too. Pressing a hand to her chest, the girl whispered that even then they couldn't just sit on their asses and wait for someone to cut off their lives. Only after that, Wanja showed his usual confident grin ear to ear and said there was nothing to fear. He already had a plan for this too. Meanwhile, many hours had passed outside, and the day with blue sky and sun had changed into a deep night with a big full moon and a spread of stars. The golden masks were still guarding the building like a wolf pack, waiting for a man to climb down from a tree. But they were scared too by the thought of the safe zone moving soon. But to all suggestions and requests, Alexis calmly replied that they weren't going anywhere until they caught and killed that sneaky rich fox. In front of them rose a huge green curtain marking the border between safe zone and radiation. And the blonde guy shouted for people to keep their meds ready. One of them tried to take the pills right away, only to find out in horror that they didn't actually help with this so-called poisoning. Looking at his own capsule, Alexis calmly said he was right. They don't work because the game is punishing them with not normal damage. Then one man ripped off his golden cowboy mask in rage and growled that he joined this faction to win, not to lose. Right now he was going to head for safe zone, and rest of them, if they liked it so much, could just die there and lose all their progress. You might think a narcissist like Alexis would blow up in rage, but nope, he calmly allowed his former servant to do whatever he wanted. The man clearly didn't believe he was being let go so easily, but he didn't want to test the words of his old leader and moved forward, just for his head before he even made 10 steps, to be pierced clean through by a bullet fired by a very steady and precise hand. When he died, Alexis said it wasn't about any personal grudges. It was just that anyone who didn't wear his symbols became his enemy by default. The young guy with gray hair and amethyst eyes felt really uneasy seeing how cruel the person he once admired actually was. But the pro gamer only turned to the others and calmly said that if anyone else also wanted to leave the group, then sure, it was their choice. Of course, after that, no one dared to take off their mask, and everyone started yelling louder than the next guy, trying to prove loyalty to Alex. The shouting stopped the moment a human-shaped but oddly moving figure appeared from the dark bunker entrance. When they looked closer, it turned out to be real, classic zombies, groaning and mumbling as they shuffled around looking for fresh meat. It looked so weird and out of place for this kind of spot that the cowboy squad didn't even react when the dead started climbing up after them. Nobody was shocked by the fact that undead enemies existed in this game, but people couldn't get why they showed up in this location and at this exact time. As for Alexis, he quietly figured that these things got raised from the dead because of radiation background. Every second there were more and more walking corpses, and the scared raiders yelled to their leader that it was better to fall back. The blonde shooter refused and calmly reminded them that if they run now with tails between legs, they would never get another chance to win those 1,000 points. When the first zombie finally jumped over the hill, he casually pulled out his old-looking pistol and with one clean shot blew the rotten brains out of the thing. Then he yelled loud at his followers to stop acting like scared chickens and remember that they had a ton of guns. Obeying him, they opened fire on the zombies, but pretty fast it became clear that there were way too many monsters to beat, even with weapons. On top of that, these things had way more health than living users, which cut the mask's chances to win even more. What happened next looked like some stupid comedy. One ghoul jumped on the nearest shooter and bit into his head, and the guy screamed that they ate his brains. For a bit, that unlucky idiot just lay on ground like some bag someone tossed away until he finally started moving again. And yeah, he of course turned into Walking Dead himself. Skin went gray, eyes turned into blank white crap. That pretty much crushed the already shaky fighting spirit of the raiders. Because how are you even supposed to fight enemy when it keeps adding numbers using you? A gray-haired kid who stayed close to Alexis this whole time yelled at him that if they don't think of something fast, this is gonna turn into full nightmare. The blonde guy kept shooting nonstop from his favorite Colt and just shouted that he wasn't about to lose the prize after all that work. He wanted Fox dead no matter what. Zombies kept crawling out of the bunker meanwhile, until three oddly familiar shapes suddenly showed up, limping along with the dead crowd. Turns out the main guys put on some dumb fake masks as a joke. And now we're moving among real undead, making low moaning sounds. No one noticed them yet anyway, since everyone was busy killing ghouls and trying not to get bitten in the head. But one person still noticed that very close by, an engine of some car started rumbling loud. When he turned around and saw the protagonist behind the wheel, pure horror hit him. 'Cause wait, does this mean zombies can drive cars now? Even a gamer as experienced as Alexis got fooled by this stupid disguise. And now he was staring wide-eyed, not getting why the undead suddenly acted so smart. So that everyone around could understand what kind of lame trick they got played with and have a laugh at it, the main guy had to take the mask off. After that, he and his partners, with the sweetest smiles they could make, wished the bad guys all the best and said they hoped to meet again real soon. Saying the blonde guy went into a monster rage after realizing what kind of cheap trick he fell for would be like saying water is wet. Forgetting about everything else, the antagonist opened fire at the main crew, but it was already too late. They were laughing and giggling while running between the trees. Not wanting to let go of his wanted prey at all, Alex ordered his guys to forget about zombies right now and go hunt those bastards. That was way easier said than done, since the zombies didn't plan to back off, and at least one guy was begging his boss to save him, which Alexis did in the most cruel and nasty way, giving a short look back and then shooting the poor thug in the head without even aiming. Now the man was dead and couldn't turn into another walking corpse, and the blonde calmly called him trash with cold hate, then kept moving on. Meanwhile, the main characters were already many kilometers away from the fight, still getting farther thanks to Wanjia's solid driving. Lin Xun was kind of person who could find reason to complain about anything, and this time she angrily said it smelled like pig because of Hero Plan. The guy replied in a chill way that they had no other choice anyway. Either act like stinky Walking Dead, or end up being food for them. Wei Hu did not step into their arguing, but his sharp look, like real tiger, noticed that Golden Mask still did not want to give up. The surviving members of that group somehow fought back or ran from undead, grabbed some abandoned transport and now kept chasing them. When he saw them in a rear mirror, the main guy did not even flinch and promised to show those mutts what real speed demon can do. At same time, the gray-haired teen driving yellow car was telling Alexis they had zero chance to catch Fox, since he stole their best ride. The blonde calmly reminded him that there was river ahead, and if those little bastards did not learn how to fly somehow, they would be trapped for good. Turned out he even played it down, because ahead was not just river but real cliff about 100 meters high, and jump from there meant sure death. The sniper shut her eyes in panic. Cursing moment she agreed to join that little bastard, and even Tiger looked honestly worried. But Juan himself, of course, felt no fear. He only grinned with excitement and told his companions to hold onto their pants as tight as possible. At the very last moment, when it felt like it was all over and he was done for, the guy grabbed the wheel with a firm, trained move and turned it hard. Only a few meters were left before the cliff, with a huge watery grave at the bottom, but the car twisted sharply and stopped. In real life, a move like that would be insanely dangerous. And even here in virtual world, unlucky passengers were thrown around like rubber balls. As a result, a classic awkward moment happened. Lin Xun crashed chest first into the main guy, and after hearing his dirty comments, she told him to shut up. As for the ones chasing them, they stared in horror, since they knew damn well there was no way they could stop their bikes. The ending was pretty clear. Unlike the lucky-born Wan Jia, these poor fools fell off the cliff with panicked screams, straight to the river below. and the main guy just could not stop himself from wishing them all kinds of nasty stuff as goodbye. After all, he was that petty kind of teen. But Alexis, too, kept getting more angry the longer the chase went on. And now he was almost growling, desperate to not lose his target. His driver and one of the last men he had left tried to remind him they already took heavy losses. Even 1,000 points would not cover it. Turns out the villain did not care about any bonuses or rewards at all. He just wanted to wipe that smug smile off Gia Pigface, and even pointed a Colt at his own guy. Feeling cold, sticky sweat run down his spine, the gray-haired guy leaned out the window and shouted to the last hunters that the target had to be caught at any cost. When they heard they could still get all possible rewards, the raiders got fired up right away and slammed gas to the floor. Turns out this was exactly what the main guy wanted. He was acting as rude and annoying as possible on purpose, just to piss off Alexis and mess with his head. As for the villain, for clear reasons he didn't suspect a thing, instead he was enjoying himself, stroking his steel rifle that looked like some scary reptile. Finally, it was time to show this small, cocky creature why you don't mess with a pro esports player, and what he was really capable of. He really was an amazing hunter, able to aim without trouble from a moving vehicle, and then take the shot. When it hit, Lin Xun didn't even get it right away, but she was instantly thrown around hard, like being on a ship during a storm. For another 30 seconds, the sleek red sports car kept swerving across ground, but in the end it gave up to physics and stopped like a dead turtle. Juan said with a grin that the pursuers had gone on full attack, but his voice sounded more excited for a fun brawl than angry. The Golden Masks, forgetting all about not counting rewards too early, were already celebrating, since the escape car flipped over and wasn't working anymore. On top of that, the remaining thugs forgot about any kind of team play and were almost pushing each other with elbows just to reach Fox first. For two of them, including the Saitama copy, it was a total shock when bullets flew out like from nowhere and instantly sent them to respawn. The third raider did not care at all about his teammates dying. Instead, he demanded that none of them even try to follow him. Once this sneaky guy puts a bullet into the protagonist's head and gets his long-awaited 1,000 points, he would stop working for anyone, even for Alexis. But the shooter was not where he expected, and he did not notice the gun barrel showing up from a completely opposite corner. Lin Xun worked nothing like Wanja. She did not make noise, did not show off or mock anyone. She hid and killed in silence, like a real sniper. So this time too, she did not waste time, and with one clean shot sent another idiot straight to the main menu of King of Gamers. That came at perfect time, because the dead guy's motorcycle was left free, and there was one person here who knew best how to use it. The main guy himself was tired of running and pretending. It was time to really show all those arrogant freaks who the real pro was. Using the nine-tailed spear like a sports pole, the teen crossed the distance in seconds and ended up right above the motorcycle. Jumping onto that iron horse, the teen didn't waste any time, firing up the engines and pumping the machine full of needed energy. The main guy shouted at Alexis and his bastards to forget everyone else and fight only him, since it was his head they were hunting from start. Seeing this, the guys in gold masks almost cried from laughing. Like, just look at this idiot. Who does he even think he is? Some legendary hero from old age? They were all deadly tired of his teen show-off crap, so without saying much, they pulled out pistols and started shooting at the main guy. But it did nothing at all. No matter how hard they tried to blow the damn kid's brains out or take his eyes, he kept dodging and slipping past the shots. It wasn't only about his plot armor. Shooting while riding a bike and holding a Colt with just one hand was crazy uncomfortable. The main character, on the other hand, had no such problems, since he controlled his body way better and also used long pole weapons. One clean strike was enough. And just like that, two enemy shooters dropped to ground in dumb poses with split chests and guts. While Gia kept moving, killing with spear gave only half the points compared to knives and daggers, but system still gave the kid 200 points. Another shooter riding in a car leaned out the window and aimed, at the same time yelling for everyone to finally focus on the fox. The main guy just smirked and aimed his bike straight at that brave fool, setting the spear tip so a clean hit would go right through the guy's head. Other thugs were flying off his path like dry leaves in a storm. No one could even scratch the untouchable kid. Alexis, who was hoping to finally get even with that damn bastard, gritted his teeth in rage, wondering if this wasn't another trap. His driver leaned out the car window and looked back, rushing to warn the boss that the border of safe zone was right behind them, like a shadow. The blonde guy darkly checked how close that deadly green cover had come, then threw a testing look at his little jar of precious meds. Without thinking much, he opened it and tossed several capsules into his mouth, getting himself some temporary immunity before the deadly radiation. The white-haired kid watched this with eyes like a hungry puppy, before finally daring to shyly ask Alex if he could take them too. But the pro gamer just shut him up rough and growled that no one gave a damn about him, at least until he helped take down the fox. Meanwhile, another shooter was desperately trying to hit the target, but his driver was pulling such crazy wheel moves that he had to yell at him for it. When the sound of breaking glass rang out, the guy turned around in horror, knowing damn well he wouldn't see anything good. Just like you would expect, another unlucky fool got sent back to respawn by a bullet fired from a very steady and skilled hand. The shaved thug almost fell out of the car window onto the road from pure fear, because this was some straight-up impossible nightmare. In that panic, he didn't even think about the car having no driver, and it slammed real fast into a thick palm tree, then caught on fire. Lin Xun, who pulled off both kills with almost perfect precision, got reward from the system. 100 points, half for each head. Then, when the vehicle fully turned into one big fire pit, she smiled and asked if Jia really thought all the glory would end up going just to him. Wei Hu, who had been hiding behind a red car this whole time, thought with dry irony how stupid all this looked, since it was meant to be a simple shooter, not a fight to death. He also looked sadly at his Dao sword, a really handy weapon for cutting throats up close, but useless in gunfights. Meanwhile, the main guy kept taking down golden masks one after another, mowing them down with the skill of a seasoned reaper, swinging a razor-sharp scythe. Finally, almost all his enemies were dead as nails, and their virtual bodies smeared in pink blood were spread across the night field. Still, one person was standing, the one who was behind this whole crazy hunt from the start, holding an Alexis rifle at the ready. At last, this legendary duel was here. A small, self-loving cheater bastard against a painfully proud pro esports guy. For this fight, Alex saved one of his best weapons, an automatic gun with a scope and power so crazy it could drop a rhino. Opening fire, the man kept talking out loud, asking how he could even let himself lose to a nasty little slippery freak like Jia. These loud thoughts pushed him into such blind rage that he fully lost his cool and screamed for that filthy kid to finally die. Even blinded by anger, he still aimed fast and well, so at least one bullet slammed into the main guy's shoulder. But this wasn't real life, so he didn't really care, and the distance for a spear strike opened up just perfect. To slow down faster, the teen stabbed the tip of his weapon into the ground, using it like some improvised safety hook. The game weapon couldn't break or get dull, and physics didn't fail either, so Juan shot up and forward like a pole vaulter. And the stolen bike, by the way, didn't stop at all. It actually sped up even more once it got rid of extra weight. All of this looked so much like a circus act instead of a fight that the blonde guy froze and didn't get right away how to react. But he still snapped back in time, just barely, since only seconds and a few meters were left before the deadly crash between the bike and the gold mask car. When it happened, the blast was so strong it turned night into day for a moment, and the gray-haired driver only got away by pure luck. After doing a roll to get control of his body again and jumping to his feet, the blonde guy growled in an even angrier voice that this was pure nonsense. But the rage wasn't blinding him anymore. Instead, it forced him to fully focus on the mission, and once again he raised his weapon. Sadly for Alexis himself, he never got the chance to pull the trigger, because an energy arrow pierced straight into his hand. The pain, even if it wasn't real, was so strong that the blonde screamed his voice raw and threw the rifle away. Now there was a hole in his palm so wide and round that you could easily stick 2 fingers right through it. And no, it wasn't caused by a bullet from a pistol, shotgun, rifle, or machine gun, but by a bow that just 10 seconds ago used to be a spear. Slowly lowering it, the main guy said with a nasty and blood-hungry grin that he guessed he must have forgotten about someone. Meanwhile, the rifle Alexis tossed away finally finished its long, painful fall, landing neatly right next to someone's pair of legs. They belonged to that same young guy with purple eyes and silver hair, the one the blonde had mocked and messed with so many times. Alex noticed right away where his weapon went, and he yelled at Fan Ji-hong to give it back now, so he could blow the main guy brains out. The silver-haired kid slowly crouched down and carefully reached for the rifle, like it might bite his hand if he moved wrong. Then came that familiar hum of a motorcycle engine, and another vehicle showed up on horizon, driven by Hu, and Lin was with him too. Now Alexis' already thin advantage was gone for good, and the main character started forming another killing arrow again. Knowing that a hole would soon appear in his head or chest, the blonde turned to his servant and growled what the hell he was waiting for with the gun. That was last straw, and Fan screamed back, "Shut up," so loud that if there was glass nearby it would have shattered into pieces. The pro gamer was so shocked that this spineless weak guy, who had let himself be used for so long, suddenly talked back that he didn't even get mad. What's more, he didn't even get time to ask how Z dared to say that, when his body got filled with dozens of new holes from bullets. Just a few minutes passed, and here he was, one of King of Gamers legends, one of best users in all of China, falling on his back without any glory. Covered in and coughing up pink digital blood, the blonde raised his shaking hand, pointed at Hong, and called him a pathetic traitor. But that was last thing Alexis could do. Just a few seconds later, his strength ran out and he turned into a still body. Even main group was so shocked by what happened that they didn't react right away. But as usual, Lin Xun was first to snap back. Right after her, the main guy pulled himself together too. But he didn't say anything or even smirk. He just lifted his bow and started aiming. What came next was even more interesting. Fan dropped his rifle without a pause, raised his hands and said, yeah, he gives up to mercy of winners and wants to join them. This was same guy who killed Wanja in past life when his team was one step from final event, so the brown-haired guy was clearly not impressed. But protagonist didn't show it. He just asked what Z could even offer them, since his team already had a brute with Hercules-level strength and a beautiful sniper goddess. With a bold smile, Fan said he had brains. He knew who stood where in food chain of this game, and he could give some real useful info. He also knew who was just a sheep in wolf skin, and the cooling body of Alexis was pretty much perfect proof of that. You might think Hero wouldn't repeat past mistakes and would just kill this creep anyway, saying his reasons were weak. But no, he agreed. Even Wei Hu, who unlike Jia had zero info about what happened in last timeline, had some serious doubts about this whole idea. But the teen just tapped his fist on his shoulder and told him not to worry, saying he was great manipulator and planner, and had already thought everything out like 1,000 steps ahead. If that fan ever decides to stab him in the stomach again, Juan will stay alive no matter what, just so he can kill that gray rat later. Slow and painful, some time passed, and only 284 users were left on the server. All the others either died with no glory hunting the fox or just quit. The main group, which finally reached 4 people, set up camp and grilled meat in this awkward silence. The main guy was first to talk, chuckling as he said the meat was finally ready, and how long it's been since he dragged anything into his mouth. The big guy also grabbed the skewer with someone's body on it, but didn't eat himself, just quietly handed the food to the drooling Zun. After that, he still took a portion for himself and bit off a big chunk. But before he even finished chewing, Tiger said the taste of this virtual meat was kind of weird. Unlike him, the woman didn't care at all. Since this was fake food, they could stuff their stomachs till it came back out of their mouths and not gain a single gram. Wanja looked at the two of them with a gloomy face, thinking none of them really get how serious this story is, and they keep treating it like just a game. Finally, Hong also spoke up. Rubbing back of his head and turning red like crazy, he asked his new big brother to share some food with him too. The brown-haired guy went all fake nice and soft, saying what bad luck. They only managed to catch 3 rabbits, and now there are 4 of them. But it's fine. He will find something for sure. Fan either honestly believed that, or chose to play along so things wouldn't blow up. But either way, he thanked Gia with a bright, sunny smile. At last, the main guy handed the newbie a small can, and with an even more polite smile said that these were all their last supplies. The gray-haired kid took this so-called gift very slowly, and his face clearly said something like, "Are you guys messing with me right now?" The air got tense like before a storm. When Juan, with a very fake smile, said that canned food is tasty, lasts long, and made from natural stuff. To stop things from turning into a shootout, the former Golden Mask quickly nodded his head like, okay, I will take this thing. After opening it, the Platinum Blonde threw his head back, opened his mouth wide, and in one sharp move sent the whole can straight into his stomach. But the taste was so awful and spicy that he almost threw up his own guts. It was just horrible. Looking at the former killer with clear glee, the main guy, without even a hint of regret, not even fake, admitted that he probably grabbed wrong can. Oh yeah, great luck. He somehow pulled out of his inventory not some beef or fish, but pure chili pepper with crazy burning heat. Z looked at him like an innocent kicked duck. Wei asked in sad tone, "What's the point of those dirty tricks?" And Zun just squealed laughing and said everyone was way too serious. But for Fan, it was not a joke at all. He stared at main guy so hard that if he had Medusa power, every living thing to the horizon would turn to stone. And he kinda by accident touched that same rifle Alexis used before, his finger just a millimeter from trigger. The already heavy mood got even worse when Wanja suddenly showed up right next to him and asked in this weird voice if Hong had any problems. The guy who looked like pure ball of anger didn't say anything, but his already tense body got even more stiff. But it didn't last long. Just moments later, Fan asked with worried look what the hell main guy was even talking about. The brown-haired guy, now back to his usual calm face, said that gun was really nice and he kinda wanted to borrow it. It sounded like innocent request. But the traitor caught the hidden meaning right away and, keeping that worried look, said it was his only weapon. Then the protagonist looked at him with killing stare and said in cold voice that, if that's how it is, it's fine, he won't be upset at all. The shooter started sweating hard under that stare, but out loud he only said quietly that yeah, he gets it, and slowly began taking the weapon off his shoulder. But Hong didn't hand it to the main guy. Instead, he tightened his grip on the barrel of this deadly toy and aimed the muzzle straight at the protagonist. No one moved. No one spoke. It almost felt like even the admins paused the world just to look at this scene. The only thing breaking that heavy silence and stillness was Z's rough breathing and the click of the rifle parts when his finger touched the trigger. But the old companions of main character didn't go anywhere, and even if they weren't stepping in yet, Lin already reached for her rifle, knowing what was coming. She never got to use it though, because Wei stopped Jun's hand and said that this was just a loyalty test for their new comrade. The girl tried to argue, But Tiger's face looked so calm and almost peaceful that every possible comeback just died before it was even born. Finally, the tension broke when Hong smiled, lowered the rifle, and said that his new big brother was really strong. So of course it made sense he wanted this thing. The brown-haired guy took the gift with a villain-like grin and instantly aimed the muzzle at Fan himself. Not forgetting to thank him honestly for this small favor, the young man jerked back with his whole body and raised his hands in some prayer pose, even though it was totally useless. It all happened so fast that human eye could barely follow it. The main guy pulled the trigger and the bullet rushed toward its target. It whistled just a few millimeters from Z's ear, only to end its flight deep inside the skull of some bald creep standing behind the group. A moment later, it became clear that it wasn't a living person looking for revenge for Alexis or anyone else, but a walking dead. And that scared everyone way more than the idea of some living avenger. So much that even Wanja, without pretending, admitted that things were getting worse. Everything turned really ugly when the main guy took a few steps toward the trees and saw a pack of about 10 rotting monsters. And they saw him too. As if that wasn't enough, the system rushed to say that now there were only 243 players left on the server, hinting that everyone else joined that undead crowd. While the squad wisely jumped into the open back of the car, the team tried to figure out what this even was and where so many of these rotten freaks came from. The game zombies weren't slow, stiff piles of meat dragging their legs. They moved so fast that Hong yelled out loud, scared and pushing his new team to move faster. They barely managed to get inside the car when a second later hands of those nasty humanoid things grabbed onto it. Wei Hu, sitting in driver's seat, turned around and growled like a real tiger, at the same time lifting his right hand with a broad blade clenched in it. This brute only needed one solid hit for a whole pack of undead to fly apart in different directions, like dry leaves caught by strong wind. But no one wanted to waste more time, so one of them jumped back into driver's seat and fired up engines again. A few seconds passed while they were already breaking out of woods, smashing through weak, skinny trees, and pink blood dried right on hood of the vehicle. It took a bit more time to fully leave edge of forest and rush deep into desert, leaving zombies hungry and pissed behind. Other characters already thought death passed right by them, close but missed. But Wanja said seriously that no, real danger was only starting. When guys and girls saw what he was looking at, they almost lost ability to speak. Hong groaned that someone had to be joking with him, and even Hu looked honestly scared. The devs, without warning anyone before, activated an event called They Are Millions. So now all over map, huge waves of zombies would spawn and hunt people. It hit the brown-haired guy so hard that he didn't even notice reward notice, cause game just wasn't supposed to do stuff like this at all. In original timeline, there were tons of Walking Dead too, sure, but they never entered safe zone, not until today. And then Gia literally dropped his jaw onto his chest, realizing all of this might be a result of his time jump, that legendary butterfly effect. This effect was named after a novel with the same name, and also after part of chaos theory, saying that a butterfly wing flap on one continent can later cause a hurricane on another. Juan was acting very different because of weight of all those years lived inside Game of Old World. And maybe that was worrying system, pushing it to create new quests in response. Even Lin asked what kind of hell this all was and what they were supposed to do with it. Just like a kid who got lost, scared, and looks for advice from all-knowing parent. Trying to answer in his old, clearly careless voice, the main guy said that a few kilometers away there was an old fortress, and they could hide there. But Wei fairly pointed out that this was way easier to imagine than to do, because right in front of them was an army of the dead. And how were they supposed to go around that? Not wasting any more time, the main guy aimed the car straight at nearest dead idiot. The poor undead only managed to turn its blind head when something multi-ton slammed into it with insane force, and then sent it flying where birds do not fly. The people in the car crushed and smashed the undead like ragdolls, throwing them aside with hands, beating them with whatever weapons they had, and not forgetting to keep firing. But the creatures just kept coming, unlike the living gamers, whose number dropped to 172. And even Tiger shouted that stuck in trap like this they would not last long. Lin Shun, trying to move as far as possible from side of the car and holding rifle to her chest like a child, added that a sniper was pretty much useless in such tight mess. But she was moving too slow, so some dead but crazy strong hands already grabbed her, with so much force that they ripped part of her t-shirt. Wanja, annoyed that one of his teammates was whining instead of doing her job, straight up told her to just shoot the rotten gray heads. But it was too late. She was already caught and getting pulled into middle of the crowd, where the woman would be torn into tiny pieces covered in blood and slime, and she was begging her friends to help. She didn't have to wait long, because a bullet went right through the rotten skull of the fastest and most active zombie, forcing it to loosen its grip. The monster maybe didn't die a second time, but the damage was bad enough to make it fully let go and fall onto the road. But the main guy, holding a still smoking gun, kept staring at it with pure disgust, like it was some nasty piece of crap. Again, he was in such a not normal mood for himself that he didn't even try to make dirty jokes about clothes. He just asked if Zun was okay. After hearing a weak yes, The brown-haired guy turned around and said in a very calm voice that he had been way too soft on these freaks. But he wouldn't make that mistake again. And now these risen from dead thugs were about to get their well-deserved bone-crushing payback. Sadly for themselves, the zombies only wanted brains really bad, but didn't have any of their own. So they just kept walking forward, locked on the target they saw, once again slamming gas pedal to the floor. The main guy drove the car stolen from the Golden Masks straight into the heart of that flesh-eating horde. By the time the shape of the huge fortress finally showed up on horizon, only 119 users were still alive on the server. One man, looking through binoculars at the mass of same gray faceless figures, hissed in anger that this event was insane, and there was no way to finish it. But then that man, his name was Zheng Po by the way, noticed something else and it made him forget all his bitter complaining in a second. He saw a blue sports car that looked like it had been beaten for a long time by massive solid hammers. It was almost falling apart while moving. Wanja was still alive, but he looked and felt no better than the car. Zombies beat him so badly that the main guy didn't feel like joking or being smart anymore. The only thing that could comfort him and his just as beaten-up companions even a little was that they finally reached the last safe zone. Zheng Po and the other guards instantly raised different guns, ordering the strangers not to get too close to the walls. Looking at them from under his brows like at crazy people, the main character seriously told them to save their bullets and ammo for the Walking Dead. Po loosened his grip on the rifle just a bit and asked what the hell the main guy was even talking about. The brown-haired guy casually pointed at the zombie horde coming closer and said that they would kill everyone here if his group wasn't let inside. But Zheng wasn't the scared type. He just asked why he should believe something like that. When a laser shot, looking like a fire whip, went straight through the edge of his cap, the man didn't even blink. To his credit, he only frowned a little. Lin Xun, on the other hand, clearly enjoyed it, striking a model like pose and casually playing with her favorite rifle so everyone could see it. And the main guy with a calm smile explained to those doubting fools that they had to let them in, simply because they were way stronger. Po slowly took off his cap, carefully checked the big, perfectly clean hole, and quietly but honestly cursed under his breath. Then he smiled easy, admitting that the rule of the strong was on the protagonist's side, and let them pass through the gate without bloodshed. Already inside, when the main group showed off their stash of guns and ammo, the local gamer's eyes almost popped out. This couldn't be called modest supplies at all. Stuff like this was enough to wipe out a whole army, and the users were honestly impressed. But this time, Wanja wasn't just feeding his ego for no reason. He showed all this because he planned to arm the local survivors. Hearing that, Po almost choked. Because that was, damn it, insanely generous, like being handed a whole mountain of diamonds. Fan added very quietly, so only main guy could hear, that this was really kinda too much, and maybe it would be smarter to keep some guns for themselves. The brown-haired guy shrugged in a chill way and reminded them that they were all in the same boat now. And if there was, let's say, a hole in it, everyone would sink. But this time, he wasn't joking like he often did before. And while handing weapon to Po, Jia clearly said that the rules of the game had changed in a serious way. The man was so shocked and confused by this short and quiet but still deep talk that he didn't find any words right away. Then he grabbed the offered rifle and said out loud that he got what the main guy was talking about. After that, the main characters moved on to explaining how their weapons worked and how to use them best. Zheng Po watched it all with this proud look, like a parent watching their kids do well, before admitting that his team was fully ready. With a warm and meaningful smile, the young guy asked what exactly their goal was in this rough mission, and he got the exact answer he wanted most. Lots of raised fists and loud shouts about winning and staying alive. Sometime later, someone decided to shoot an arrow at one of the zombies, but for that kill, the system only gave the user 10 points. That didn't really upset him much since he already figured the game paid very little for that. But what did stand out was that only 87 gamers were left. Right then, Hong came up behind him and carefully asked the boss if he wanted to talk. Without even turning around, the main guy sharply told him not to call him that, since he wasn't anyone's boss. The platinum blonde smirked back and said that no matter what Jia called himself, he was the one making plans everyone now lived and worked by. With some hidden admiration, he said Juan was insanely cruel, since he recruited so many people just to kill them all at the end to win. Looking at him like at a talking rat, the protagonist said Z was wrong, and that he really wanted to fight side by side with Zheng people. That's when the schemer went silent, because it all sounded like some stupid hero nonsense. There was no way to beat that many zombies. The brown-haired guy just smiled and reminded him that King of Gamers never gives players tasks they can't finish, so there was no reason to fall into despair already. And Fan Zhi in particular was just irreplaceable for what's coming next. He was meant to play a key role in the next mission. The platinum blonde carefully asked what exactly this was about, and the main guy admitted that he needed a scout to gather info about enemy traits. Zheng picked 3 people to walk through wastelands and learn as much as possible about zombies, and as sign of trust, Jia wanted to do same thing. Then the schemer asked why the choice fell on him. since main guy also had Lin Xun and Wei Hu, and both of them were way stronger than Hong. The main character argued that Tiger goes crazy in fights, like some berserk, and stops noticing anything around, which would only make things worse. As for the girl, he again made face like horny monkey and chirped that without him she was totally helpless in close combat, like fragile pearl. But Fan was perfect option here. He knew how to run and hide, handled different kinds of weapons well, and never rushed straight to death. After that, Jia asked if the newbie maybe wanted him to do this job himself, with look on his face like he would kill Z for wrong answer. The gray-haired guy understood very well that he was being pushed, used, played with, so in rage he clenched his fist until knuckles cracked. Then Wan shrugged in very careless way and said that, as reward, he would not force Hong to fight in final battle, giving him much better chances to survive. After that, the antagonist gave up and agreed to go scout, not forgetting to say he hoped main guy would not take those words back once they became inconvenient. Then he turned around and just walked away, like he didn't want to stay even one more second near such a suspicious and dangerous guy. Still, before he fully disappeared, the main character said again that he was right, but the most important thing was to at least make it back to the fortress alive. Someone else might have been moved by that, but not a single muscle twitched on Hong's stiff face, even when he went down and left the fortress behind. Wei Hu watched the white-haired figure moving away very closely, then quietly asked the main guy why he left him there to die. Wanja leaned his back against the wall and smiled like a parent explaining something obvious to a clueless kid, asking if Tiger was really still doubting him. And in his head, without any smile at all, he admitted that keeping such a snake close to his chest would be a deadly mistake. Z was clearly planning his own escape anyway. Meanwhile, the antagonist, who already crossed the desert and was now pushing through forest bushes, growled in anger that this bastard clearly wanted him dead. Stopping for a moment and looking at his old rifle, Hong swore that one day he would kill the main guy for sure, at least for all the humiliation he went through. And of course, he had no plan to do anything right now. Yeah, right. It was enough to sit in this quiet hidden place for a couple hours, then come back with a made-up report. It sounded like the boldest way to mess with fate possible. And right after that, the leaves on the branches above the schemer started to rustle. This went on for a few seconds until the teen finally looked closer at that plant mess, which had already started to open up. Under it, somehow, there was another zombie, its head popping out of the branches and freezing just a few centimeters from shocked Fang. After that, the screamer effect kicked in, and the guy screamed in panic, losing all grip on whatever he was sitting on. Turns out he wasn't sitting on ground under tree like you might think, but on another branch, and now he was falling down from like 2 or even 3 floors high. In real life, Hong would have broken his neck or spine from such a rough fall, but in game, he only got some bruises and calmly pushed himself up on his elbows while cursing, looking at the ground under him, swearing at damn zombies hiding in damn trees. He didn't notice right away how a crowd of golden masks gathered around him. The schemer almost died from fear when he saw his former guildmates, because that just couldn't be. No way in hell they could rise again. Yeah, Alexis himself was standing there, clearly dead, with gray skin and white eyes with no pupils. But at the same time, he acted normal and could talk. Jia was working on something in an office inside the fortress, when the system reported that 74 people were left on server, and a bit more than 12 hours stayed till end of event. Wei Hu was here too, also reporting that he finished recounting people at the outpost. There were exactly 72, including new arrivals. The main guy thanked Tiger for his work and said that this amount of gamers was more than enough to pull off all their plans. Suddenly, someone's voice from behind the door said in a dull tone that no, there were 73 people here. Both Wan and Wei flinched, then slowly turned their heads, already expecting to see someone dangerous. They were not fully wrong, because behind the door stood Fan Ji, who had finished his mission, and if looks could kill, half the fortress would already be a pile of dust. Tiger, though, seemed to not notice that hateful stare full of poison at all, so he just walked up to the schemer and patted him on the shoulder, praising his strength and work. For a few seconds, Fan Ji stared at the big guy with clear annoyance. Then, with a clearly forced kind smile, he added that at least he got some useful experience fighting zombies. The main character also thanked him for the job he had done, which must have been really hard. But then the antagonist, not wanting to fake it anymore, stepped closer to the main guy and asked him straight if he was going to keep that promise. The brown-haired guy shrugged carelessly, not stopping his writing on the paper, and calmly suggested that Hong should tell everything he learned, then go rest. And the fight for the outpost coming in 12 hours could be passed onto their shoulders with a clear conscience. Sometime later, things in the fortress were going same as always. It stood tall in middle of wasteland, and any dead that came close dropped with shot-through head. Lin Xun, who was on watch, was dying of boredom, since nothing interesting happened for hours now. Even zombies looked like they forgot how to attack. The silence got cut by clapping hands, and a male voice happily pointed out how damn good the blonde was at her job. Zeng, awkwardly hiding top of his face under shadow of his cap, admitted he admired this gamer girl so much that he was kinda her fan. After a few seconds of carefully looking over the unexpected guy, the sniper thanked him for the compliment, then asked why he kept a shot through hat. Blushing even more, Po said he would keep it till end of the game, since Lin was the one who shot it, and she almost started grinding teeth when she got she was talking to some creep. The talk quickly turned awkward and annoying, at least for June, but she got saved by main guy showing up, who had been looking for Shooter all over the castle. Putting his cap back on, Zung awkwardly said he would leave main characters to talk in private, since he needed to go check on supplies. When the man was out of sight, Lin, picking words very carefully, asked if Po whispered something to Jia, or if she just imagined it. And the brown-haired guy, looking at the back of the commander walking away, straight up asked if he was just trying to flirt with her. From that, the poor girl choked on air and her eyes went wide, like some nasty invisible creep just kicked her hard in a very sensitive spot. Grinning in a gross way and using the most sweet and kinda dirty voice possible, Wan reminded her that she's a beauty, a real goddess, so she must have an army of guys after her. Blushing awkwardly and looking down, the blonde mumbled that she wasn't very good at stuff like that, and anyway, if she ever marries someone, it has to be a great gamer, nothing less. Then she turned around but didn't even make one step when a hand slapped her on the back, and Jia quickly said he came to talk about serious things, not to joke around. After that, the girl stopped and asked what kind of things he was talking about now. Then scene jumped ahead a few hours, closer to evening, when there was just a bit more than 6 hours left before the attack. The time traveler and Wei Hu were standing on the wall instead of guards, staring into the thickening dark, and sometimes looking down at the map with markers. This went on until Tiger finally asked if the Walking Dead were really going to attack their outpost. Right now, he didn't see any nightmare army of undead bringing death to all living things. Just a normal group of slow-moving freaks. The brown-haired guy, strangely enough, answered seriously. No smirks or faces, even sounding tired. And yeah, if the info wasn't lying, the real fight was coming very soon. Out on horizon, some weird movement started, and the big guy instantly pulled the binoculars back to his eyes again, trying to figure out what was going on. And when his eyes got used to the dark and showed what was hidden before, Wei Hu didn't even scream. He just dropped his jaw in massive shock. This wasn't even a horde, because a horde has an end. This was an endless ocean, just not water, but living, rotting, blood-hungry monsters. Everyone else in the fortress rushed to the walls after hearing the alarm. And once they saw that nasty sea, real despair hit them hard. In a firm command voice, Wan Jia yelled out, forcing everyone to shut up and listen. And he wasn't about to lie that winning would be easy or that everyone would survive. Only some dirty fake talker could promise that stuff. All he could swear was that he would never stab anyone in the back, and that he would fight on the front line himself. That was enough. The gamers heard that no one saw them as nameless cannon meat, and no one planned to throw them away to save their own skin, and their spirits rose. Only then the main guy finally showed his usual smug grin, and added that he sucks at pretty speeches, so he'll say it simple. He raised his hand clenched into fist, and roared some curses, the point being that they would not sell their lives for cheap. The rest of the people on the wall picked up the shout right away, showing not even a shadow of the fear and despair that had grabbed them just a minute before. So there were exactly 6 hours left till end of the event, and all those millions of walking dead from every side of map closed in around the fortress in a full ring. One of them took a clumsy step forward, and that move wiped out both him and a dozen of his own kind, because a mine was hidden underground. Seeing that, the guards let out a breath, since the explosives they had been hiding around for so long actually paid off. Then the main guy shouted like some American colonel, saying you can't relax for even a second. So open fire on those bastards right now. Night turned into day as mines kept blowing up one after another, wiping out dozens and even hundreds of dead, while shooters on the walls didn't spare ammo on the rest. Zung Po was there too, the one who had been running this fortress long before the main crew arrived, and he wasn't about to leave his people alone for even moment. Old Good Tiger was there as well, acting like he got into his own personal heaven. He could mow down undead with a huge machine gun for as long as he wanted, but for every walking dead they killed again, 100 more stood up, and the horde kept pushing forward, fully ignoring any obstacles or losses. Those things knew no fear, no pain, no doubt. In front of their eyes there was only one goal: find as many people as possible and infect them with their virus. Realizing that the enemy, unlike ammo, was going to run out, Wei got scared again and asked Wan Jia how he was even planning to beat all of them. Pulling back the energy arrow on his bow, the brown-haired guy said in a calm, steady voice that the big dude should relax. Before this, he was just warming up. Before shooting and blowing away like a dozen rotten heads, the main guy asked if all those ghouls were ready to meet their worst nightmares. No answer came, but he didn't need one anyway, and he also didn't shoot the dead ones, instead using arrow to light the liquid on the ground. Hu watched this with his jaw almost hitting the floor and eyes wide open, deciding that right at this critical moment the main guy had gone blind. The teen, Back to his usual vibe and showing off, very dramatically raised his hand with fingers spread and slowly told him not to worry. No surprise there. The dark slime on the ground wasn't someone's night bucket trash, but some super flammable crap, and now it burned hotter than gas. Not even 10 seconds passed before that weak little fire turned into massive blaze, jumping at the zombies like hungry shark at school of fish. Undead were almost impossible to scare or confuse. But that's only in normal cases. Now they acted like living ones and started screaming. Turning very slowly toward the main guy, Wei muttered that this plan felt familiar, with a face like he really wanted to bite the kid's head off, and the main guy, not looking confused even for a second, just smiled bright and said it was a good time-tested tactic, especially against crowds. No matter how dumb the zombies were, even they had some kind of brain, and the rest of the horde just stopped, waiting for the fire to burn out. It felt like nothing could ruin this win, until the first raindrop softly, almost not even felt, landed right on Jia's head. When a real downpour followed right after, the main guy lost all his pride at once and muttered in a dead voice that higher powers were clearly messing with him. Every second the rain got stronger, and pretty soon it was clear that the desert, which suffered from drought most of the year, was about to get hit by a real storm. And the fire went out on its own. No fuel, no other tricks could help when such a heavy wall of water crashed down on it. The rest of the people understood his feelings perfectly and shared them. They had felt for a long time that the game was actively trying to get rid of them. Looking up into the swirling black sky, the traveler, through time, soaked to bone, muttered that he had this feeling it was all someone's bad plan. And the zombies, realizing that their biggest fear and enemy, fire, was gone, rushed forward again with new force, making survivors scream in panic. Desperate times needed desperate moves, so the guards dumped down pots of night soil, meaning a mix of waste and boiling water. It knocked some of the monsters down, but the rest didn't care at all and kept crawling up until they finally reached the top of the wall. After some time, the first ghoul finally put his green fingers on the bricks of the fortress wall, looking down at world from a height like a tall building. It almost could be called a win moment, but right next to that poor thing, Wei Hu showed up right away, telling him to stay down. A real fight broke out, one worthy of a full siege. People were holding the walls with all they had, while endless creatures were climbing up from below. The main guy was wrecking his voice, yelling at allies to not give up, not lose hope, and not shake, because the win in this war would be theirs anyway. A very quiet voice full of toxic hate from Fan Ji added that sadly the coming win would be without Wan Jia, and he froze up. They had been fighting for over 2 hours. Only 59 people were still alive, 3.5 hours left till event ends, and a gun barrel was pressed to back of his head, calmly closing his eyes and not even trying to dodge or run. The main guy asked Hong what he did to deserve death like this. The schemer, almost breaking into mad laughing, screamed that he kept asking himself same thing, since the brown-haired guy was always in his way to winning. The teen answered in same calm voice that Fan should have just waited deep inside Fortress. Then he would stay alive, but now sadly. He did not finish because the fully gone mad antagonist barked that he made a deal with Smart Undead, who promised to spare him in trade for Jia head. Not paying any attention to it, Wan finished his sentence, sadly for himself. Hong just talks way too much. Because of that, the failed almost teammate didn't notice someone was aiming right at him, and he let bullets go straight through his chest. Lin Xun, who hadn't shown up on the walls all this time, finally stepped out of the dark and with a pleased smile reported that mission was done. She knew exactly where to shoot, since she didn't kill Fang right away, but almost wiped his HP bar, leaving him no chance to win. Pouring streams of pink blood onto the wet stone floor, the villain wheezed that now it was clear to him that Wan kept suspecting him all along. With stone-cold face, the protagonist said that he planted a tiny beacon on Hong. That's how he knew the schemer stayed in one spot for way too long. Desperate to at least have last word, the antagonist rasped that the teen shouldn't be happy. He was never meant to win anyway. He worded it in a way that made it clear right away this wasn't about game contest, but about someone real, and Wan asked at once who it was. He didn't have to wait long for answer, because the guy showed up himself in full shine and glory, like an actor walking on stage where thousands are watching. Whatever this Alexis was, a living player or some AI, he fully kept the old esports drive to rip the kid guts out. But if he thought he would impress anyone, he was wrong. Wan just looked at him like he had no idea who this guy even was, or what he was supposed to say. Someone else might have felt awkward, but not this narcissist. He went on proudly explaining how he took some zombified drug and became way cooler. The main crew had zero plans to listen to all that till the end, so without any ceremony, they shot the blonde guy straight through his rotting skull. Lin Xun, standing on the opposite clock tower and the one who fired the shot, summed it up best by asking if Alex decided to turn himself into a freak. Grinning so wide his gums showed, the former human growled that he was immortal now, and that was actually true, since his HP bar didn't drop at all. That really knocked the confidence out of the sniper. She blinked in an awkward way, not getting how this was even possible without cheats. Getting ready to fight, the main guy only shouted for the shooter to go help the others while he dealt with this sudden problem himself. After finishing his loud, mocking laugh, the blonde said it was pointless. Zombies would follow him anywhere, and soon they'd take over this outpost. Wanja just shot back that this gave him even more reasons to kill this bastard and tried to do it right away, jumping into attack with his spear. But nothing he did with the spear worked. And the former cowboy barked with contempt that he was now immune to any physical attacks. Stuff like limits didn't really hold him back at all, and Alexis showed that by grabbing his enemy right by the throat. In real life, that would take insane strength. But since it was still a game, even Gia, the one getting attacked, kept a flat, calm face. He didn't scream or even groan after getting slammed into wall so hard it fully broke, which in real life would have meant broken bones. But the villain was still drunk on himself and his new powers, and couldn't stop for even a second from mocking his prey. Juan wasn't going to please him with anger or fear, though. Instead, he casually admitted that, yeah, he had already been through stuff like this before. That shocked Alex so much that he loosened his grip, even if just a bit, giving the main guy chance to drive spear straight into his chest. And that wasn't all, because a few seconds later the spear also got covered in raging gold-orange fire. Because of that old failure, the main guy was now ready to use any means, any dirty tricks, just to never go through that again. After that, all the confidence, bragging, and arrogance got wiped off the villain in one go, and he couldn't believe someone could hurt him even now. Turns out a few days ago, when he wiped out Tiger's traitor group and took the reward, there was also a skill card inside the chest. Since the guy used fire to kill his enemies, the system logically gave him a card meant for using flame-related skills. Oh, it wasn't any pyrokinesis or fire magic. Wanja just had a really lucky idea and covered his spear with oil so it could be set on fire easily. Alex didn't even hear those bragging words. He was kind of busy burning alive for a second, and couldn't get why he was dying if he was supposed to be immortal. A cold computer voice told the main guy that he just defeated the Zombie King. And for that, he got a huge reward of points, a full 500. Watching the enemy twist around and scream, the main guy couldn't help but drop another nasty joke about how the grill master just made a new dish. He simply wasn't going to show this bastard even a tiny bit of respect, and looked at him like a slowly burning pile of disgusting trash. By the time Alex finally went quiet, his body was still burning with an ugly hissing sound, while the brown-haired guy casually switched to a new topic. Even if the enemy war leader was dead, it didn't really mean much because the Walking Dead were still there and kept attacking people. There were only 2 hours and 19 minutes left until the end of this ugly slaughter, and the number of players was dropping fast. Now there were just 47 left. Zombies, on the other hand, were doing way better. There were still millions of them, and they kept climbing the walls over hills made from their own bodies. A bit more time passed, and number of living fighters dropped to 43, and Wei Hu was fighting like crazy, pushing monsters away with elbows and legs. Then another small time skip. Now there were only 39 people left, and even Lin Sun was starting to lose hope of making it out alive. Zheng Po fought like possessed, just a normal gamer with no pile of cool buffs or artifacts, holding his rifle until his hands went numb. But his group was 3 people down now. Wanja didn't show it, but deep inside he was starting to feel desperate too, since he was sure he would win right away if he killed the monster leader. But nope, that didn't happen. Fan Ji, who nobody even tried to finish off for good, twisted his face into a mocking grin and said it looked like both of them were doomed. He even felt a bit sorry for all those idiots who blindly trusted their lives to main guy, because he was leading them straight to game over through hell. Without stopping for even a second to pull the bowstring and not even turning around, the brown-haired guy very slowly, with pauses, repeated those words. Follow him. Then he suddenly turned around and said with a grin that, yeah, that's all true, and that's exactly why he was going to use it to tip the scales his way, even half dead from blood loss. Hong blinked in confusion and slowly asked what the hell the protagonist was planning this time, clenching his fist and staring straight ahead like some actor in an ad looking into camera. Wan Ji said in dramatic way that this time it was finally time for real survival. Meanwhile, his teammates were already going down. For example, Wei Hu crashed to ground screaming and groaning after his armor got broken and his stomach was cut open, blood everywhere. On top of that, the dead thing attacking him had its own weapon, a really solid and sharp axe that was basically screaming about how expensive it was back in shop. It was already about to drop the blade on Tiger's head and split it like some rotten pumpkin, when a mocking and loud voice suddenly rang out. The walking corpse stopped, but only at very last second, when just a few centimeters were left before Hu's sweaty face full of fear and waiting for pain. Realizing that for some reason he got spared at last moment, the big guy barely caught his breath, before noticing that the voice sounded real familiar. It wasn't anything magic or shocking. Main guy was just pulling his usual crap, somehow getting a motorcycle and screaming at top of his lungs, calling enemies over. Even Lin Shun, watching this from top of Clock Tower, totally lost words, Cause yeah, she was used to Gia showing off, but even for her this was straight reckless stupidity. Meanwhile, the brown-haired guy kept yelling like crazy and waving his arms, pulling monsters to himself, and they slowly but surely dropped everything just to go after him. But this wasn't just another dumb joke to feed his ego like everyone thought. The main guy had tied the corpse of Alexis, the zombie leader, right to himself. The blonde guy had become the boss and a walking beacon for the horde. They were basically programmed to move wherever he went, whether they wanted to or not. Of course, most people couldn't know that. They even missed Alex showing up in middle of the fight. And now they were just confused by how fast everything changed. Juan didn't really care though, since he decided to play for huge stakes anyway. Odds were like 1 in a million. And there was a bit more than an hour left till event end. Tiger, barely getting up on his sore and tired legs, growled at no one in particular, asking someone to confirm that Gia didn't really kill himself for their sake. A second later, a female hand gently landed on his wide shoulder, solid like a plank. And its owner calmly said that things weren't like that at all. Lin whispered with hope that main guy wasn't that type of person. No, he was type who rips victory for himself by any means and still comes back alive. Whole zombie army from first corpse to last suddenly turned around and followed New Beacon, ignoring that explosions from somewhere started wiping them out. The teen gave a satisfied grin, because once again everything went exactly the way he planned it. Bombs kept falling from sky, dropped by unknown ships and planes, and each one erased like 100 Walking Dead at once. Horizon turned orange and gold from all the hot gas and smoke rising up, and survivors were damn lucky this happened right there and right then. Sun was used to main guy pulling everything off like some Marty Sue, but she never imagined he could predict and use even this. More than an hour had passed since then. Only 17 minutes were left till end of event, and so many zombies died that you could cover whole islands with their bodies. But nobody was happy about it, because out of more than 100 players, only 26 were still alive. Just 2 damn dozens. Wanja's teammates were staring at Horizon with empty looks, watching Sun come up, talking to no one, since the kids still hadn't come back. Zhengpo didn't want to feed them fake hope, so he said it straight that he thought the main guy got torn apart, because all living people were already here. But all that did was make Zun stubbornly say, without even turning around, that guys like that don't die. This wasn't real life where even a hero could die like trash. She got proven right away, when a figure on a motorcycle showed up on Horizon, framed by rising sun. The blonde was a sniper for sure, but she didn't have some hawk eyes or anything, so at first she couldn't even tell what the hell was going on. But then it hit her, and she started crying from joy, calling the main guy an idiot for that crazy heroic stunt of his. Only thing missing was some dramatic music from old Western movie, just to really show everyone how epic this moment was. Like it turned out 10 minutes later, Wanja not only survived but wasn't hurt at all. And now he was warmly looking at his, if you could call them that, brothers. He got surrounded right away by people yelling from hype, joy, and relief, slapping his shoulders and calling him a damn genius for everything he did. In all that noise, no one noticed how the only woman in the group quietly walked up to him and rudely grabbed him by the collar. The sniper acted like a strict mom dragging bad kid by ear. And the main guy, even with all his strength, just followed her without trying to break free. Even when she was yelling loud at him, right in front of dozens of shocked people, chewing him out hard and barely holding herself back from hitting him. For first time, Gia felt like many others in this group, stuck inside some dumb comedy, and he promised himself to not do stuff like that again so people would leave him alone. Luckily for him, everyone quickly stopped caring about this verbal beating, cause System sent a message saying the event was over and all survivors get 500 points. After reading that, they can finally leave the game too. Even the main guy let out a breath and muttered that the first round was done. But then, Lin Xun suddenly asked if Juan was really sure he didn't forget anything before finishing this run. Everyone right away traded suspicious looks, like a bloodbath could start any second just to raise survivor points. Hurt and worn out, but still alive, Fan Ji-hong stubbornly crawled away from others, mumbling to himself that just a bit more, 1 or 2 minutes, and he would win for sure. He froze when he realized he was literally standing in someone's shadow, and the owner of that shadow coldly asked how far the unlucky young schemer thought he was going. The villain slowly raised his head and threw a hateful look at the main guy, wishing he was a rattlesnake. Then he could just bite his enemy's leg and pump in as much poison as possible. Barely hiding a psycho grin under a kind and friendly face, the main character asked if the young guy maybe wanted to stay and celebrate. All the pride, hate, and smug confidence got ripped off Zhihong's face like a scab from a wound, and he stared at Gia in pure terror. He even started stuttering and calling him brother. Almost screaming at top of his lungs from fear, Fan rushed out words that he was just a pitiful mortal, a worthless worm, and someone so great shouldn't even think about him at all. Realizing that wasn't enough, he straight up started begging for mercy, bowing his head to ground and asking to spare his life in return for eternal and now truly loyal service. Just to mess with the guy who betrayed him twice, an old timeline and new one, the teen slowly chewed his lip, acting like he was stuck with a hard choice. And then with a happy and innocent smile, he said that honestly, he could even forgive Zihong, like none of this ever happened. The traitor's face twisted in a really weird way from all the mixed feelings hitting him at once. Hope was fighting with doubt and fear. When something slammed into his forehead with insane force, fans' amethyst eyes almost popped out and turned red, like someone had thrown sand straight into them. Pink blood bursting from his head and the eyes turning white made it pretty clear that this player's character was dead, and now could only lose his mind with rage back in real life. Lowering the smoking pistol and turning away from Hong's body, Wan Jia dryly added that he lied, then said nothing else, just enjoying this small moment of release. After that, the scene finally shifted to real world, where there were no zombies, no point hunters, no system, and no other game nightmares. Instead, there were annoyed viewers who were sick of watching the main guy win over and over, like readers of some manga where hero always wins no matter what. Haters were sure the main character was cheating somehow, since he was first in rankings with a 2,000-point gap. But GOG fans were ready to stand up for him. Even random people who had nothing to do with these fights were tired of seeing and hearing about him. They didn't even know where to hide from his face anymore. But there was one person who listened to all this, and almost choked on water, barely spitting it out in time. It was the main group who decided to meet up together. And since King of Gamers just copied users' looks when making avatars, there was no way to not recognize them. Wei Hu almost died when he heard that stupid, sweet nickname Jia Jia. And Lin Xun instantly started teasing the main guy about what kind of fans he had. The brown-haired guy, with this tired, dramatic look, asked them to stop turning him into some kind of joke, since thousands of people already saw him as dirty cheater and scammer. The woman calmly pushed back, saying she thought same thing too. And how else could it be if Wanja somehow always knew exactly what was going to happen in-game in near future? And about the points and accusations, that's totally normal. Winners always and everywhere get suspected of winning in dirty ways. All of that was fine, sure. But it still didn't answer where the brown-haired guy was getting that info from. And Tiger straight up asked him to finally answer. The main guy, like usual, dodged the question, fixing his insanely expensive sunglasses with a thin smile, and added that he hoped they could stay friends. But the sniper reminded him that next round would happen on a completely different server, which meant there was big risk they'd get thrown into opposite ends of game world. Juan agreed that was true, even if after first stage only 1% of all gamers stayed in game. That number was still kinda crazy. But on other hand, on later stages, chances to end up in same group were much higher, just because all other users would be sitting on loser bench by then. Lin just let out a heavy sigh, kinda casually showing off her big, red and full lips. Then, she admitted she wasn't sure she herself could make it into the final winners. Not everyone can be winner at everything like their dear Jia. Tiger carefully spoke up, guessing full weight and meaning behind those unpleasant self-putting down words. He didn't even get to say more than couple words, cause main guy smiled and asked if they really thought he came all this way just for some dumb stuff. Then the sniper looked at him for a moment, kinda thoughtful, and slowly muttered that he better not tell her he was planning something like that. Everyone knew cheats were basically lying and messing with game data to boost your character. And everyone also knew that in King of Gamers this was straight up impossible. But what the main guy was about to do wasn't cheating at all, not even close. It was a massive trick, way above any simple kind of fraud. His companions repeated those words at same time, and on both faces you could clearly see some healthy doubt. Not keeping them waiting anymore, Wanja confirmed that he would give them info about the next King of Gamers round, giving them real advantage. The helmet used to launch the game looked a lot like modern VR headsets, but it was more futuristic, using way more advanced tech. A notice also popped up on phones saying the match would start in 5 minutes, so everyone needed to get back to their computers as fast as possible. Slowly picking up the helmet, the guy in the familiar red jacket muttered just 2 short words, Eternity Tower. Putting on this glass, metal, and plastic aquarium, the main guy boldly yelled that he was going to come back to this place again. The activation happened in a pretty normal way. First, the space around turned into some solid mass of electrons, and then the guy's body lost its everyday clothes. When everything cleared up, the dude was already wearing a soldier shirt and pants, and he calmly noted that nothing around had changed since last timeline. The point of this round was as simple as it gets. You had to reach the top floor of a very tall tower and beat other users in card games. New gamers felt weird about this idea for different reasons. Some even complained that for a man it felt strange to climb up floors like that. And then it happened. Whole scene got covered in fog, only for lights from spotlights to cut through it a moment later, lighting up a human shape in distance. Every second the light got brighter and more clear, and the new character Friendly offered to answer all questions from users. Everything would be fine, if not for fact that host of this game looked super grotesque and cartoonish. Pink hair and a mohawk and a pink suit to match. Yeah, to main guy's disappointment, this part also didn't change at all, and he made a face he never made before. And he wasn't alone. Lots of other gamers started making faces too, squinting and bugging out their eyes in funny ways, demanding right now to change host to some hot woman. Hearing that someone even called him a gorilla, the pink giant lost it, smacked someone with mic and called that guy an ape instead, saying he himself was total pro anyway. Realizing that he just acted unprofessional, the host said sorry in a calm way and once again asked for a chance to explain rules of the contest. It wasn't some original idea, but it worked. Gamers had to climb a tower, fight monsters, and avoid all kinds of traps. Each floor was way more hardcore than the last one, not letting users relax at all, but as payback, the game offered rewards. 3 types of cards. There was red attack card, golden item card, and blue effect card, but all of them had same symbols on them. Then a young woman stepped out of the crowd and pointed out that none of them had any gear, so if they met a monster on first floor, they would just die. Crowd picked that up right away, asking for their wealth saved from first round, or at least some items they could fight with, like a frying pan. Spreading his arms like some preacher, the host spoke with voice of an old traitor and promised they could buy all needed cards right now for lowest price. Just one card would cost 1,000 points, and everyone instantly stared at the pink punk with very clear looks. Then, loud protests started. Gamers were shouting one after another that it was still crazy expensive, and that such brutal prices leave no chance for people with low points. When a cry about fairness cut through the noise, the host twisted his huge lips into a mocking smile and told them to stop acting stupid. There was no justice at all, not in life and not in game. The strong bathed in fame and money and stuffed their bellies, while the weak died from hunger and their own weakness. Some users maybe got through the last round thanks to pure luck, but that will not happen here. The tower will kill everyone unworthy. Then he sang out a warning that only half hour was left before game starts. After that, people would have no chance at all to buy anything from him. All this talk about strength did not impress anyone. Actually, it did opposite. Many people decided this game can burn, if it sets rules like that. The pink giant smiled even wider and chirped that look. Game did not even start yet, and unsure weak fools were already leaving ship like rats. All that noise got stopped by just one quiet voice. Its owner said he wanted to buy some kind of card to pass the round. Someone else might not even notice it, but the host reacted like a top guard dog that caught scent of a runner, looking at the sudden volunteer like an eagle ready to jump on rabbit. The man told him to think well, since that was 1,000 points. The main guy did not look embarrassed at all. He only smiled even more gently and asked to sell him 7 cards at once. From that request, the host almost had heart attack. He grabbed edge of the stage and rasped that it was 7,000 points. How was that even possible? All of a sudden, one gamer took a real close look at him, pointed a finger, and yelled that this was Wan Jia himself, the same guy who was #1 on ranking. The woman who started this loud talk about card selling looked at the brown-haired guy for a moment, then asked if it was really him. The main guy smiled again, tilted his head, closed eyes a bit, and quietly said, "Yeah, it was him, the well-known Jia in flesh." He thought everyone would start admiring him right away and maybe even love him, but he messed up bad. Instead, he got hit with hate, disgust, and lies. No normal person could take that kind of treatment, not to mention someone with such a big ego and love for cheap tricks like the main guy. He snapped pretty fast and growled over the noise that he was not a cheater, even poked his chest with finger and stared at every loud mouth with angry eyes. The answer was dozens of rude hand signs because these people just hated him like hell, and now they were happy to show it out loud. The main guy froze for just a second, then slowly reached behind his back and grabbed the handle of the 9-tailed weapon, and even more slowly said that if they hated him so much, then they should kill him right now when game starts. That's what he threw at them, gripping the weapon tight, flashing a rude and fearless grin across his face. From the crowd jumped out a bald muscle monster, yelling that Wan Jia was just an arrogant, loud piece of crap, and he would bury him in ground. A lot of people were happy to back him up, all of them staring at the main guy with so much hate and anger that it was weird he hadn't already turned into some puddle of slime. Even a nameless girl who wasn't part of the argument admitted in her head that the brown-haired guy had an amazing talent for pushing people to pure rage. As for the host, he was still so shocked by what happened that he didn't even try to stop the clash. Instead, he noticed how player morale was dropping because of it. The arguing was ended by Wan Jia himself, when he pointed his spear at the pink big guy, and straight up asked if he had a problem with him wanting to buy 7 cards. The man reacted fast, striking a very show-like pose, like some star under cameras, and assured that no, there was no problem at all, and client wish was law. He confirmed it right away with a snap of his fingers, and after that faint blue waves of energy spread out like they were cutting through space itself. In front of the main guy appeared something like a massive stand holding thousands and thousands of cards, all of them hidden, making the pick totally random. For a moment, this actually threw Jia off, since it meant all his experience and memories couldn't help him at all. Deciding to just trust luck this time, the kid carefully reached his hand toward the card right in front of his face. But even then, he couldn't stop himself from showing off, like, look at this pups. This is what real gambler power looks like. And most important part was that King of Gamers itself was mercilessly playing along, lighting up whole rooms so hard that people's eyes started hurting and they screamed, almost bathing and enjoying those rays of fame like a tick stuck to a dog. Wanjia ordered the system to finally show him what he got. It turned out to be a gold blue card with a smiley on it, and text saying that boy who likes to smile has some pretty decent luck. Everyone froze, even main guy, because this damn piece of trash ended up costing a whole 1,000 points. And for what exactly? The watchers got even more shocked when the brown-haired guy twisted his face so bad that he stopped looking human and started to look like some ugly humanoid monster. Faces around him weren't much better, though, since they were still trying to understand how game creators had guts to sell crap for that price. Meanwhile, the teen decided to keep going with his little show. And with very clear, almost theatrical laugh, he tossed the card up. It didn't even fly a few meters before the razor-sharp edge of the nine-tailed spear rushed straight at it. People screamed like scared and excited bunch of monkeys. That artifact cost a whole 1,000 points, and this damn kid just ripped it apart so casually. Even the host lost his words and mumbled, barely keeping control, that they would not refund points for destroyed item. And there was no need to act weird. Smiling so sweet it felt like you could get horrible cavities just from looking at him, the teen said it was fine. Just a couple of points anyway. But another card looked way more promising to him, so the main guy decided to try his luck with that one instead. And there was also one more card he didn't even open. Something about it felt off, so Wanjia casually cut it into tiny pieces. In the end, he kept only 3 cards of each type, combat, trade, and special effect, tossing all the other stuff straight into trash. Everyone around basically dropped their jaws. They couldn't believe this damn cheater really did that, just throwing away thousands of points like it was nothing. The teen gave a smug grin and said that now he was going to explain how things really work. He started saying this simple speech about how, if you don't take risks, you get nothing. And even thinking about losing is already a promise of that loss. If it was some random guy saying this, people would laugh at him or even beat him up. But since he was main character, his words somehow made everyone feel ashamed. A few seconds later, someone else raised a hand and shouted, trying to get the host's attention. Some dude, making a face like he was suffering worst constipation ever, demanded cards for himself too, even if it meant losing all his points. It was like tossing small stone that started an avalanche. People one by one began shouting, begging for artifacts, usually just 1 or 2. Situation fully slipped out of the host's control, and he raised his hands in a "I give up" gesture, asking users to at least line up. The mysterious woman stayed silent like before, watching everything from side, more like a shop mannequin than living person. But unlike all those fools, she caught the main guy's hidden idea, to tease everyone enough so they would rush into the contest no matter what. I mean, really, if there are too few players, then the run turns crazy boring. Where is fun in killing a couple of losers when you can cut through a crowd? The gates leading from safe starting zone to first floor, where real war for survival began, slowly opened, opening with loud crash and grinding noise. From inside, the place looked a lot like old Chinese pagodas, with their signature spiral stairs, and each one led to some unique level. Honestly, the air was so tense that it felt like every single step could echo like thunder in space. Before the main guy even took a short step up the stairs, he stopped and noticed something else. A whole bunch of random nobodies, who weren't even pretty young girls fit for his harem dreams, were following Gia around like little ducklings. None of them was going to admit it, of course. And in general, they said it was the main guy who had awful ego issues if he thought someone was following him on purpose. This lie was so bold and shameless that Juan, for first time in a long while, totally lost his words and could only glare hard, bite his lips, and puff his cheeks. The only woman in the group said out loud what was already obvious. These suckerfish think they can get some meat by sticking close to a shark, trying not to lose the last bits of his self-control. The guy was pushing his brain as hard as he could, looking for a way out of this ugly mess. He couldn't think of anything better than using an old trick as world itself, making a crazy face and yelling that some hot woman was taking her clothes off over there. And damn, it actually worked, because everyone there except him and that quiet brown-haired girl were complete idiots. But turns out it was the host there, who decided to play along with main guy, and actually started undressing, showing his muscular and hairy chest. He got so deep into role of a pretty, flirty goddess that he just kept giggling softly, even when players started screaming like angry monkeys and throwing stuff at him. Some of them even wanted to use weapons to erase such a horrible sight, but then they noticed that the nasty cheater already ran off. That's right, main guy was long gone, and game even added some cartoon white lines shaped like his body to really rub it in. He was already running up the stairs, and he wasn't laughing like some hyena, only because instead he was pushing himself to run even faster. And in a totally different place, far beyond the limits of virtual reality, there was a fancy office, where its owner was watching how things played out. An old man sitting in a huge chair, hearing his subordinate coming closer, briefly asked if there were any issues with how the second round was going. Looking at a tablet with photo of the main guy on it, the programmer dragged out that everything was fine, with just one small exception. The head of the company slowly repeated that word, and his look, his voice were so cold they could freeze even an erupting volcano. Instead of answering, the corp worker tapped a button on his tablet. Now the screens clearly showed the main character, that same thorn in their side, who in very short time got 2 achievements and 7,000 points. Resting his head on his fist, the director asked if they found any signs of weird stuff, cheating, or anything else that could be used to punish Wanjia. Sadly, security couldn't find a single sign of that kind of tricks. And for now, the main theory was a leak of insider info. Lighting an old wooden pipe, the man said it didn't really matter, since the second level was fully random, and they should just send the strongest monster after the hero. The programmer awkwardly reminded him that their company promised to never mess with user progress in any way, especially not like this. The new antagonist cut off that messy stream of excuses with a few short and ice-cold words, asking if he really dared to disobey his will. Scared out of his mind, the junior staff guy instantly said the boss wish would be done as soon as possible, and even bowed deeply, while the villain muttered to himself, hoping to see what made the main guy different from everyone else. The other one already reached the right floor. He clearly remembered how his first fight in this place went, and now wondered what kind of enemy the system would throw at him this time. The answer came as a truly thunder-like step. A massive scaled claw slammed into ground so hard that cracks spread across floor. Even the main guy, who was usually all tough and confident, opened his mouth in shock and mumbled that this had to be some sick joke. They didn't send some big lizard man, ogre, or cyclops at him. They sent out an actual 8-headed demon dragon. And this thing, unlike others, didn't play games at all. It instantly dropped a sound roar on its prey so strong it could shatter rocks. It felt like a storm wind swept over land, huge stones rolling off into distance. But Wanjia was still standing there, only raising his elbow to cover his face. Then, he slowly lowered his hand, and with his usual grin said that all of this was just gross. Like when was last time dragon even brushed their teeth? Realizing this attack wasn't doing anything, the scaled monster threw several of its heads forward, trying to snap the little human with its jaws. The main guy grinned even wider and just barked back in a mocking way. Like, what is it? Did I really just hit a nerve there? When the dragon smashed its massive fire breath into the ground, leaving a crater, it loudly released hot steam through its many nostrils. But the main character didn't die at all. He even slipped away without a single scratch. And now he was muttering how all this really brings back memories. A year ago, in the old timeline, he and his group, with Wei Hu also there, already fought this thing. But back then there was no time for cheap show-off. They got crushed hard. They still managed to seriously hurt the beast, but at cost of huge losses on their side, and that last attack was mostly an act of pure desperation. Now the protagonist was saying out loud how the hell you could meet this thing alone and on starter location, when it's supposed to be final raid boss. But on the other hand, he didn't give a damn about reasons or logic. The only thing that mattered was that he could kill this chunk of meat solo and take all the points that come with it. Just like before, people in real world were watching the competition, and now, many of them couldn't believe that someone could be this level of crazy. Wanjia, knowing all this, looked straight into the invisible camera, and in a friendly tone guessed that all his haters were probably praying hard for his ugly death right now. Then he laughed in this mocking and mean way, while unseen to him comments were running across screen, half full of hate and half full of praise. His talent for pissing people off was so good that even the dragon, a dumb piece of game code turned into shape, decided it had eaten enough with all 8 mouths. It breathed fire again, only this time way stronger, hot enough to turn stone into lava and sand into burning rough glass. Casually dodging the stream of burning death, the main guy couldn't think of anything smarter than using another old classic move, a mom joke. Easily slipping past every ball of flame, he finished it off by saying that anyone who plays with fire will end up burned theirself. The main character used the 9-tailed spear like a pole vault, throwing his body high into the air and blinding the monster with his smile more than Sun ever could. Whole world felt like it switched into slow motion as the teen adjusted his grip and pointed the spear tip straight at the dragon. The metal tip, freakishly strong and sharp, went right through the scaled skin and even the massive skull bones like they were made of clay. Feeling this sharp and totally new kind of pain, the many-headed beast screamed with all 8 mouths, not even trying to focus on target anymore. The teen was grinning in a blood-hungry way, stabbing the wound with his spear again and again, making huge splashes of pink blood, and wheezing that he wasn't done with this yet. Posing for some invisible camera so fans would choke on hype and haters on bile and hate, Wanjia announced the spear transformation. This time he unlocked not the well-known energy bow form, but a massive black and orange sword that looked like a Japanese katana. It was way too symbolic. a young knight killing nasty dragon by cutting off heads with blade. The guy just couldn't resist playing into that image. Just one casual swing, light and careless, and the huge head, bigger than many cars, crashed to ground, leaking pink blood everywhere. The system voice showed up again, telling the main guy that for killing one of the 8 heads of the creature, he gets solid reward of 200 points. Putting his foot on the chopped-off head just to show off again, Gia figured that after full kill of the monster, he would get whole 1,600 points. But then something really weird and nasty happened. The cut stump started twitching and swelling, like was trying to break out. The main guy was used to lots of strange and gross stuff this game could show, but this time even he froze and could only swear. The dragon grew a new head, just like Hydra from old Greek myths. And it would be fine, maybe, except it never had powers like this before. Now that the monster became 8-headed again, it let out a loud, long roar, showing it would fight until one of them is dead. Still holding the cut-off dead head in his hands, the main guy asked the universe to pause for a bit, since one thought just hit his head. Each head, like said before, was worth 200 points. And now it also turned out the beast could grow them back with no clear limit. And that meant just one thing. Now he could chop this poor thing apart for points as long as he wanted, turning himself into richest user in this damn game. Game monsters and other NPCs were not supposed to have mind or feelings, but this poor dragon got so scared that it hugged its own necks. What was meant to be a punishment for a cocky cheater, he took as the biggest gift fate could ever give, making the so-called bad guys look stupid. A monster designed as an unkillable, unstoppable doom could do basically nothing to this nasty kid, and pretty soon it was just a bloody lump of meat. Just like before, the main guy felt insanely pleased with himself. And how could he not? Since in just a few minutes he managed to earn over 8,000 points. People were still watching this, and one old woman grumbled in an annoyed voice that this brat dares to say he is not cheating, while clearly doing all this. The head of the corporation was also staring at the screen. And now when it became fully clear his idea was falling apart, he slammed his fist on the table in rage. Grinding his teeth and trying not to snap into some animal growl, he spoke to his unlucky underlings, asking how they even dared to let this happen. Those idiots somehow allowed such a nasty score farming bug to exist in their game, and they did nothing about it, pure trash. Feeling like lightning was flashing and thunder was crashing right over their heads, they tried to excuse themselves, saying they just did not expect this kind of result. They also said they could not change data of non-player characters. It was just impossible right now, so they all quietly waited for boss to give new order. After that, the antagonist fully lost control and started yelling out loud, calling them morons, and demanding emergency limits to be added right now. Staring at Wan Jie with hate through the screens, the man rasped that he was truly the first one to force a full rule change just because of himself. Meanwhile, the protagonist was calling over the still-alive dragon, planning to hurt it again, with a twisted face and a voice like some creep looking for easy victim. The poor monster was so broken by fear and pain that it was ready to let anything be done to it, just so it would be left alone after. Then half the sky got covered by a new system notice, saying that clearing each floor now must take no more than 30 minutes, or users would lose. Wei Hu, who of course had his own fights and adventures going on, just finished wiping out his enemies and let out a calm breath. Glad he made it in time. In a totally different place, Lin Xun, after finishing off a squad of classic steampunk killer robots, complained that this update was way too harsh. As for the viewers, most of them agreed it was a desperate move just to finally stop that damn Wan Jia. On top of that, the main guy didn't even notice he spent almost all his time fighting the dragon, and now he had no more than 1.5 minutes left. Well, he honestly wasn't surprised, since he wasn't dumb enough to really think they would let him farm points forever with no limits. The devs normally wouldn't even need to go that far because no local level player could beat a Hydra that easily. But the main character got lucky not only because he went back in time and remembered the run perfectly, but also because he pulled the right card. It was an attack buff that let the user hit several targets at same time without much effort. As long as he was using ranged weapons, he decided to test this little treasure right away, creating an arrow made of pure golden energy with help of his artifact. Then he very slowly pulled it onto the bowstring, so every idiot on other side of screens could admire how amazing and great he was. And only after that he relaxed his fingers, so the fast multiplying arrow would for sure destroy all heads of the demonic dragon at once. Killing the huge reptile with just one shot didn't work out for the kid. But even so, the unlucky beast was twisting in pain from how bad it hurt. After that, the main guy pulled out his artifact sword and with one swing sent out a deadly blast wave, cutting down everything in its way. This time, one solid slash was enough to chop off all 8 heads of the enemy, like they were just sausages on butcher counter. On top of that, the sword flew through the air like a boomerang, before coming back the same way into its owner's hand. So now, after the kid finally dealt with the final boss of the whole Infinity Tower, the game rewarded him with 9,770 points. And that wasn't even all. From the dead lizard came this strange blue alien glow, which quickly formed into a sphere and then into some kind of item. Genre rules said that after killing a dragon, the hero gets boots or a cloak made from its skin, and COG devs didn't fight that idea, giving Gia a new reward. No one tried to keep it quiet either. Across all locations, a message rang out saying that great Gia already killed the final boss and got a legendary artifact. Like you'd expect, a lot of people really didn't like that, reacting like, damn it, that jerk again, can't even turn on radio without hearing about him. Casually stepping on the dead demonic bird, a mysterious brown-haired woman muttered to herself that she really didn't want to fight the main guy. That same congratulation message was being streamed live, so viewers all over China could follow what was going on right now. Random watchers already had a real allergy to the name Wanja. They were sure the company was shoving him everywhere on purpose just for ads. Lin, who just finished killing a monster that looked like some sky bison, shook her head and said the main guy would sooner die than stop showing off. Wei Hu reacted pretty much the same, laughing on his warhorse and yelling that, yeah, sure, wherever this guy goes, he always ends up shining brighter than anyone else. A man who looked a lot like Fan Jihong, just about 15 years older, asked the big guy in an awkward way if that was the broken strong player, and if they knew each other. Tiger had to clench his jaw as hard as he could, because otherwise he would have laughed so loud he'd stun this poor dude and everyone within a kilometer. Honestly, it was a stupid question, since they didn't just know each other, they were sworn brothers, best bros you could ever have. Meanwhile, the main guy already put on his cloak, and he couldn't stop admiring himself. Damn, he looked good in it. So cool and so over the top. Like any teen, he was ready to deal with any flaws or discomfort just for the flex, cause style and personal coolness always come first. Just to make him finally stop, damn it, feeding his ego, the system reminded him he had 13 seconds left before moving to next level. The brown-haired guy started complaining again that people were just messing with him, cause in the end he did kill the local boss. That should have reset the timer. But no one cared about his whining at all, so the main guy had no other choice but to drop everything and run. Run like all of hell was chasing him. Story would have gone in a really weird direction if he didn't make it and got disqualified. So yeah, he made it in the very last second. It cost him such insane effort that the kid was almost choking, trying hard to get back at least a few scraps of stamina. With his vision all blurry and ears ringing from his heart pounding, he didn't notice right away that he wasn't alone in the room. Even after that hit him, it took a good few seconds to force his eyes and brain to start working in a normal way. Standing in front of him was that same brown-haired girl in black and white. But there was also some unknown man there. And weirdly enough, a small girl too. The stranger asked her question again, asking if she was really talking to that legendary Wanja, the top-ranked player and all that stuff. The main guy looked at her like he was seriously thinking about maybe killing her right now, kind of solving problem at the root. He remembered this woman very well from his past life, and she was a top-level player, one of the best you could ever find. But the guy just decided to play dumb again, scratching back of his head with this silly fake laugh, saying it was an honor to be known by such a pretty girl. That didn't impress the girl at all. And with some sharp, dry sarcasm, she reminded him that the main guy took all the fame, so it was hard not to hear about him. After that, the girl finally spoke up, saying her name was Chu Yue, a self-claimed big fan of Big Bro Wan Jia. Then the man talked too. His name was Qin Guo Liang, and he was clearly old, which somehow didn't stop him from playing the game. Now, when almost everyone said their names, the protagonist decided to act like a gentleman again, trying to introduce himself all proper and polite. Getting what he was going for, the woman said her name herself, Zhou Duiwan. And she didn't care about this stuff at all. She was here just to clear the game. The problem was that this couldn't be done solo like killing monsters. Now 4 players had to find a way out of this quest room. And for Gia, this was way more serious than fighting some dragon or a zombie horde, since he openly admitted he didn't get anything besides fighting. Then Chu Yue stepped forward and said she was really good at things like this, because in real life she often does this kind of stuff for fun with friends. But the brown-haired girl coldly reminded her that this was a totally different case than normal quest rooms. First of all, because the difficulty was way higher. Despite his own words, the main guy actually understood something about this kind of genre, that they needed to find a key so they could get a chance to escape. Then, the old man pointed at a box standing on a small table in middle of the room, and guessed that it might hide a clue for clearing this part. At first look, it was a very classic medieval wooden box, the kind noble ladies loved to keep their small treasures in. It also had a keyhole, shining and glowing in the light, like it was silently begging someone to put a key in and open it. Like a small kid seeing some strange but really interesting thing, Wanjia reached his hand toward the box to try opening it. But since he didn't have any key or lockpick on him, he just grabbed the artifact and started shaking it hard near his ear, checking if something was rattling inside. Just like Lin Xun before, Zhou Dui wasn't going to deal with this nonsense. And without any mercy, she smacked the guy on the head with her palm, hard as hell. From pain and surprise, he loosened his hands and almost dropped the valuable item. But Juan caught it easily, like she did this every day. While the main guy was laying there, feeling offended and humiliated, the girl came closer and started patting his head, talking softly and telling him not to hurt. The woman still decided to explain that there could easily be a trap inside, but for some reason, no one except her even thought about that. Then the girl noticed that the card was not smooth. There were actually some words written on it, but after looking closer, she got that it was nothing useful, just a basic "you must look for key," like the organizers thought users were too dumb to figure it out. Still, Joe repeated this simple line like there was some huge secret hidden between the words, and you just had to find it. Xu Yue, feeling like a professor among bad students, said that quest rooms always work like this. One riddle leads into another, and only after that you get the exit. Qin also said that this room was actually pretty small, so looking for key should not take that much time anyway. Now that everyone shared their thoughts, Dui Wan turned to the main guy, asking him to show his deep thinking too. Old wisdom says that if you do not understand anything, just smile or make smart face. That's exactly what he did, saying there were no other ideas anyway. After that, people spread out into different corners of the room and started carefully checking everything with their hands, looking for something odd. Guo went for the books. Chu, being the thinnest and shortest one, decided to search for possible key on floor, under small tables, pillows, and other furniture. Wanja just stood in front of a bust made in old antique style, asking himself out loud where the hell this damn key could be hidden. His brain was working with a lot of creaking, like rusty gears that haven't been oiled in ages, because he wasn't used to using it in places that a battlefield. In the end, he had to admit that thinking like this was way behind fighting and brawling for him, and the brown-haired guy let out a heavy sigh and looked away. That's when he saw Joe on all fours, looking into a cabinet for a key, and right away he made the most dirty and animal-like face he could. Sadly, he said out loud how this view was way better than any hint, and Juan threw him an annoyed look over her shoulder. Chu, blushing hard and making this cat-like grin, chirped about what a pervert her dear big brother was. But there wasn't really any blame in her voice. Standing up straight and brushing dust off herself, the woman calmly said she searched everywhere she could but didn't find anything useful. Then Chu Wei stepped forward again, hands proudly on her hips, and declared that it looked like they had no other choice but to trust the whole thing to her. And she for sure knew what had to be done now. Pull out a pre-saved effect card from her pouch, tuned to search for every possible answer. The effect of this artifact looked a lot like stuff you see in video games. A blue glow spread out from it, softly wrapping the whole area. People under its effect looked like classic holograms, all flickering shapes, and Jia had to admit it was pretty damn interesting. Then the voice that suddenly got louder belonged to Guo Liang, who was usually distant and quiet, because he really wanted everyone to look in one direction right now. Pretty fast, it became clear there was a solid reason for that reaction, since under the scan, one piece of furniture started glowing deep purple. Clapping her hands in an extra careless way to dust them off, the girl repeated the request, and at the same time turned off the card effect, bringing room back to normal colors. The main guy wasn't impressed though, since they were supposed to be looking for a normal key for the box. So why the hell did a piano even matter here? The brown-haired girl figured it out, saying it's all about wordplay, because key isn't just metal thing for locks. It also means how you tune music stuff. She also guessed that if they play some specific music on this thing, they might unlock the exit to next level. And right then the mood in the room shifted, like it got filled with soft spotlight light. And the main guy sat down on the little chair by the piano and offered to play a sonata. Like he said himself, he kinda knew how to handle instruments like this, and now he was very clearly very showy, warming up his cracking fingers and palms. Wanja was trying his best to show off to look as cool and good as possible, but Joe's stare was so flat you could almost iron clothes on it. If it was up to her alone, she might have tried to find another option, but then Yue ran forward, glowing with excitement, demanding the performance. The older woman, still full of some really serious doubts, slowly asked if the main guy actually knew anything about music. Biting his lip with an extra shy smile to look a bit more charming, the main guy said he learned it back on Hawaiian Islands. And now he asked his new teammates to give him this small chance to pull them into a world of what he called truly divine music. Well, if this music was god level at all, then only for some twisted god, because both the tune and the brown-haired guys singing were awful, nasty, and totally off-key. Listening to it felt even worse than screams of a cat some psycho decided to skin alive. Those hell sounds could honestly be used to torture people. As for Zhou, she could ignore a lot of things, but not pure stupidity. And other players had to hang on to her just to stop her from smashing Jia's skull with that bust. When someone asked if he was really taught to play music, the protagonist answered with a dumb face that, yeah, back in a kindergarten called Hawaii, he was taught by Aunt Wan herself. That was last drop for Dewey Wan's already tiny patience cup, and she pretty much exploded from the rage hitting her. After that came the most brutal and longest beating the main guy ever went through. He was screaming and begging for help, while Guo was covering Chu's eyes. Juan only stopped when Jia's face turned into a swollen mess of bruises. And he was thinking why she was just as cruel as Lin. Sitting down at piano instead of him, the brown-haired girl coldly said they had no time left to mess around, which was pretty much an order for the guy to shut up. Since he failed to back up his bragging and no one else wanted to try, Jo decided to play something on piano herself. It turned out way harder than it looked from outside. Her hands were shaking just a bit, but Dewey calmed herself by thinking she just had to follow notes. The sounds she made by pressing keys were nothing like Wan Jia's noise, like night and day. So soft and beautiful they could almost bring tears. Chu closed her eyes and fully gave in to the music, feeling like angels were coming down from clouds, gently holding her soul and lifting it up to heaven. Even Guo, that stiff and dry old man, was smiling softly, mumbling that he knew nothing about music, but this still felt insanely nice. For some more time, the girl carefully moved her fingers, going from white keys to black and back again, until she finally stopped. She said she was done playing with such an empty face, like she just told Weather Report, not played an amazing piece. And everyone there, forgetting about main quest for a moment, burst into applause. Even the main guy whose face healed crazy fast in game. Since Yue was just a kid, she cheered the loudest for this little show, and was first to point out that the box finally opened. When they were left alone, as much as you can be alone in such a small room, Jia admitted he never knew Jo had talents like that, and asked what the music was called. Giving him an indifferent look, the woman admitted that it was an excerpt from a very melancholic composition with the lyrical title Moth and Flame. It shouldn't have mattered at all, but the main guy suddenly got serious and started repeating that name very slowly under his breath. Then he turned around, not even angry, but in real madness, like he suddenly wanted to kill everyone here with his bare hands. Xu Yue, who had just pushed the small box away from the center of table, froze from shock, and only her head slowly turned toward him. Turned out that this wild reaction wasn't aimed at anyone there, but at the deadly turret rising up from under the floor. Less than 3 seconds passed before the weapon opened fire, drowning half the room in raging flames, and it swallowed the girl too. The users left were shocked and scared. They couldn't understand how this even happened or where the trap came from. Meanwhile, Yue kept burning like some scarecrow lit up for holiday, and Wanja was trying with all he had to get to her without burning himself alive. In the end, he managed it, knocked the flames off her body, pressed her to his chest to shield her from more damage, and then jumped away from the wall of fire. When it moved past them and started eating only the furniture, the teen tried to wake his little fangirl, only for his face to twist in pure horror. And not just his, Guo was staring at what was happening with the same kind of deep fear, while only Dui Wan stayed almost as calm as she always was. Realizing that this girl's avatar was fully dead and there was no way to revive it, the main guy started yelling in rage and punching the wall like a real person had just died. Jo showed her softer side and told Jia that none of this was on him. No one could have known something like this would even happen. The old man, who also got over the shock pretty fast, set it straight that the real Chu Yue was alive and fine. She just lost and couldn't keep going in this round. Because of that, their main task stayed same, to find the key that was still hidden somewhere inside this cursed box. Everything would be fine, but there was one small problem tied to it. If they don't figure out how to put out the fire, the box will turn to ash, same as their chances to win. Then, the brown-haired girl stepped forward, asking to take care of this again, and showed the others a red attack card. It was a spell made to create huge and powerful streams of water, and in just a few seconds the girl was surrounded by a real whirlpool. Like some grand water god, she waved her hand toward the wall of flames, and the flood rushed at it, just like a hunting dog after getting command from its owner. A few seconds passed and that nightmare fire was fully gone. Only small streams of moisture running down the table and the box sitting on it. Honestly, it looked so damn amazing that both men couldn't hold back excited shouts. Just like kids seeing some really cool thing. Jo just sighed back in calm way and admitted she kinda regretted the flames bursting so fast. Otherwise, she would have tried to save Chu Wei the same way. Guo stared at the box like it was a poison snake ready to bite, and very carefully asked if there were any other traps left here. Wanja pulled up part of his dragon coat over half his face and said he had some resistance to fire, so he should be the one to check. Very carefully, ready to jump back any second, he walked up to the table and grabbed the box with his hands. But nothing happened. No huge spinning saws from the floor, no poison gas pumps, nothing at all. And the guy could finally look at their new clue properly. At first glance, it was just plain crystal balls in red, yellow, and blue, the kind you can buy in kids' shops all over world. Even Jo looked kinda confused, like she expected something way more impressive, when she and Guo each took a gold and a red ball. A system notice popped up saying these toys had to be broken to get clue, but each user would only see their own message, and one of them would be fake. The main guy instantly got into a fight mood and suggested they just smash those glass things right now, then compare whatever info they get from it. No one argued with that, not even Dui Wan. And a second later, a loud crunch echoed through the room, all at once. Like it often happens for drama effect, nothing showed up for first few seconds, and everyone just stood there with eyes closed. Then they saw their own naked bodies floating in a black space full of code, and Jia got a message saying victory needs sacrifice. The illusion vanished as soon as he opened his eyes, and he didn't try to twist it, just honestly told the others what he read. Joe got a totally different notice, and it said, "Have an eye that looks at hard road." After that, both young guys turned toward the old man, and the main guy asked what kind of hint he got from game. For a bit, Guo didn't answer, and he even stared in a real strange way, like for some reason he got stuck in that computer space. But then he blinked in a more normal way, shook his head, and looked at his companions all confused. Trying to make his voice sound as natural as possible, he said that the doors will open only when one teammate gives up his life. In other words, the people running the event were clearly trying to push them against each other. And because of that, Dui Wan started to look honestly upset. Wanja, though, reminded them that Chu Yue had just died to a trap not long ago, and nothing else happened, no doors open to let them move on to next level. Trying not to look at anyone, the older player muttered that his message felt kinda weird, so most likely it was the fake one. The main guy crossed his arms and looked down at the floor, trying to match his hint with Joe's and figure out what sacrifices for victory an eye with hard path were even supposed to mean. The girl suggested that the eye might mean an item shaped like an actual eye, so maybe they should try looking for something like that. Casually rubbing back of his head, the brown-haired guy complained to the game about how it still used such old methods, always forcing them to search for stuff. Moving the books on the shelf aside, the girl pointed out that even those could hide useful things, so they shouldn't ignore anything that looked suspicious. Meanwhile, the main character walked up to a bust, made a bandit face, and in a scary voice demanded a deposit, saying the eye from the hint better not be a real one. It wasn't even an NPC with some kind of fake I put in by devs, just a piece of furniture, but even it looked like it broke into sweat from fear. While they were busy searching, no one paid attention to Guo, even though his face was crazy tense, like he was getting ready to make hardest choice of his life. The man did nothing, said nothing, didn't even move. But he couldn't pull his heavy and almost scary stare away from the back of the girl's head. She had no idea what was coming. While no one was paying attention to him, Chin quietly and fast pulled a golden card from his pocket. It shimmered in the light like some kind of rare coin. A few seconds later, it turned into a huge ice-covered axe with a horned skull, kind of weapon that would look totally normal on World of Warcraft server. Go really didn't want to do this. By all gods and Buddhas, he would never go this far in any other case. But yeah, he wanted to win way too much. And since the prize was money that could feed its owner till end of a third life, Dui Wan was supposed to be a good girl and die quiet and without trouble. But she wasn't planning to be such good girl. So in just few seconds, she turned her whole body and kicked her former teammate right in the stomach. The hit was stronger than if Liao kicked a horse in real life. He flew to other side of the room and then started coughing and moaning like crazy. He still got up to fight till the end and was already about to use the axe, but a familiar energy arrow pierced his arm, forcing him to drop the artifact. Guo fell to his knees, holding his wound. And now he couldn't really be a threat to anyone, maybe except himself. Looking at the girl from under his brows, he rasped in despair. Why you? Like it was Joe who tried to attack him first, looking at him with no anger or hate at all, just like he was some biting bug. The brown-haired girl slowly said that, yeah, it really looked like he lied back then. The main guy stepped closer from the side and admitted he thought he was the only one who noticed that. But since that's how it was, he had to give Wan some respect for being sharp. As for Liao, the young players weren't going to leave him any choice, except to answer what kind of hint he actually got from System. Almost crying from pure rage and despair, the old man yelled that if the main guy hadn't stopped him, they both could be celebrating victory already. Turns out System was way more direct with him. It demanded that Chin kill one of the two of them to open path forward. That didn't even surprise the protagonist. He just pointed out that after that Guo went after Zhou, since she looked like easier target to him. After hearing that, the brown-haired girl very slowly turned her head, stared at Jia with this sharp owl-like look, and quietly asked who exactly he was calling the weaker one. Before his face could turn into one big mess of bruises again, the guy smiled as innocent as possible and said it was just a joke. But jokes aside, Liao really should think first about one thing. What if his hint was that promised fake one from the notice? The traitor screamed back that it was obvious. The brown-haired guy himself got message saying, victory needs sacrifices. And one thing just naturally leads to another. Then the main guy looked at his enemy in a totally different way, sharp and cold, and in a low voice admitted that the logic behind that claim was flawless. And everything would be fine, except he didn't give a damn about arguments or conditions. Any bastard who touches his people simply has to die in the most humiliating way possible. No longer trying to explain himself or defend anything, Chin just started begging for mercy, asking for one more chance to prove he was still useful. When he finally realized it was pointless, all he could do was stare with his already huge eyes, veins red and swollen. He didn't even scream when the main guy's blade cut his throat. He just quietly dropped to the floor, bleeding out with that pink computer blood caused by censorship. Wiping his sword, the main character made a face that could easily go on some propaganda poster and hissed that all traitors will die. The woman watched all this in silence, lips pressed tight, but noted to herself that this clown and walking nonsense could be shockingly cold at times. Then she suddenly said she could see how this was a sore spot for Wanjia, clearly because someone betrayed him in the past. Without turning around and without saying the name Fan Ji Hong, the main guy admitted, yeah, someone stabbed him in the back, a person he trusted with that back without question. But now it only lit a new fire inside him, a drive to punish every sellout in a way that makes them cry and call for mom. Then he noticed that door to next room was still closed, which meant the hint that now dead Chin got was really fake. Walking up to the locked passage, the new female lead slowly ran her fingers over it, thinking about what those words about I, path, victory, and sacrifice could even mean. And by pure accident, she triggered some inner mechanism, and a scanner showed up on the surface of the door. Everyone stared at it with surprise, but also with relief, since their stuck progress finally moved again. Wanja first thought it was some kind of scanner checking fingerprints, but Joe corrected him right away, saying it was checking eyes. The main guy stayed true to himself, because he instantly pushed his teammate aside, made a stupid monkey face, and pulled open one eyelid wide. The door scanned for a few seconds, then analyzed the data, before showing a message that the check failed. Tension came back again, since there was no one else left in the room except Gia and Joe, and if neither of them worked, then what else could they even do? Even the usually calm and steady girl looked shaken now, and started mumbling her hint like it was some kind of sacred chant. Weirdly enough, it was the main guy who reached the answer first, finally getting what was hidden behind that whole eye and path metaphor. It was that same bust, at first glance just a plain piece of decor, but its eye socket was shining in a weird way, like it was calling out to anyone looking. Without wasting even one more second, Juan walked up to the small statue and reached toward its face, fingers moving to pull the glass eye out. And Wanja once again showed a bit of rare caution, straight up begging his new friend not to touch that damn thing. She only looked at him with her own big round eyes, almost like owl eyes, and asked in an innocent voice what was wrong, like she fully forgot what happened to Chu Yue. A few seconds later, a terrible crash echoed out, and a huge dark blue sphere burst out from inside the walls. The thing slammed into the floor like a shark diving into water, breaking through concrete, marble, and whatever else was there, leaving behind a real abyss. In just moments, the level was split into two parts by a massive gorge that, as Wanja had to admit, was impossible to cross. Looking at it all, horror hit him hard. The line about sacrifice in the hint wasn't there for nothing. Dewey would have to give herself up for taking the eye. Most people in her place would have lost it completely, maybe even smashed the artifact out of anger. But Juan calmly smiled and admitted she messed up, and she had no plan to ruin the main guy's chance at wealth and fame. Instead, she used the moment to throw him the item. She threw her glass eye with crazy force and perfect aim. If this was a baseball stadium, the crowd would be screaming in joy. The guy caught the gift, but before using it to escape, he wanted to know why Joe was showing this kind of help when she got nothing from it. Turns out it was payback for how just a few minutes ago the main guy did not let Liao smash her skull in. The main character put on serious face and answered in same serious tone, saying he understood. His guess was right too. After scanning the eye, the scanner let user pass through. The door slowly opened, and the guy felt wrapped in soft otherworld light, pulling him to move forward. Looking down, Juan thought about how weird it was. She was giving herself up for a total stranger. Suddenly, an arrow showed up right next to her head, with some kind of tail behind it. Wanja used his bow to make a quick bridge over the gap, and he threw his spear across on the rope. Like an acrobat, he landed on the other side, taking a classic superhero pose on purpose.